Hi, I'm Debbie Hawley, Chairperson of the St. Lucie County School Board. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you to this opportunity to get to know the best of the best. Teachers that have been nominated by their peers for the honor of 2014 Teacher of the Year. Please enjoy this opportunity to get to know them, and I know you will feel as I do, that we are surrounded by wonderful professional educators in St. Lucie County.
Hello everyone, welcome to week 3 of the 2014 St. Lucie County Teacher of the Year Conversations with our candidates. I say 2014, you might think, well gosh, this is only 2013, but the winner is selected and will represent the state next year and work with the legislature, so that's why it's always a year ahead. Our first interview, this segment, is with Windmill Point Elementary. This is Melissa Lucrezia. She teaches 2nd grade at Windmill Point, and you've taught 3rd grade and 4th grade and 5th grade. We'll go into that. And also, Janitha Manis is your principal, so thank you for being here as well, to take your time. I know there's so much you could be doing elsewise, but we always enjoy introducing our professionals to the community so they see who's in the classrooms with our children. And so much is expected of you, and so much is expected of teachers today, and children today as well.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about you, Melissa, and maybe where you grew up, and did you always want to be a teacher, that kind of thing?
Well, I grew up in Yonkers, New York. I was born in Yonkers, New York, but I actually moved to Florida when I was 1, to Port St. Lucie.
Okay.
So I've lived in Port St. Lucie most of my life. I went to Floresta Elementary School, and then I went to St. Anastasia and John Carroll High School. So I'm a pretty much native of this area.
Okay.
And then I went to Florida Atlantic University for both my bachelor's and my master's degree. My master's degree is in reading education.
Okay.
And I knew from a young age I wanted to be a teacher. I played school all the time.
Did you line up your teddy bears?
I lined up my stuffed animals, and I had a chalkboard in my room, and I played sometimes with the neighborhood kids, and I was always the teacher.
Of course.
Always the teacher. I was never the student. And I think just from a young age, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. And so it just kind of blossomed from there, and I decided that's what I wanted to go to school for, and here I am.
Right. And wouldn't you say, Ms. Manis, that attribute is so important? The always wanting to be that nurturing, helping, teaching, because if you have it at a young age, it's just always there.
Absolutely. I'd say teachers are born, definitely.
Right, right. And, some can be a second career change, and we've had a couple this year, but it's always like when I went to the classroom, I knew that's where I belonged.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now tell us about your second. This is your first year in 2nd grade.
This is my first year in 2nd grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, did it pick you, or did Miss Manis kind of pick it for you? Or
I kind of picked it, actually. I knew that I always taught intermediate, and I knew that I was ready for a little bit of a change, and I kind of wanted to have that primary experience under my belt just for my future endeavors.
Right.
And so
That's
I thought,
a good point.
yeah, it's always good. I mean, I always knew I wanted to be an intermediate teacher.
Meaning 3rd, 4th, 5th grade.
3rd, 4th, and 5th. And then I did that for so many years. And then I said, you know what, I kind of feel like maybe I could use a little primary experience. And so I went from 5th to 2nd, which is a huge jump. So it was a little challenging at the beginning of the year. I looked at my 2nd graders almost like they were still 5th graders. And so it was a big change, but now I love it, and I really like the age. A really nice age.
Well, your experience with 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, though, really gives you a really good perspective, don't you think, on then to say, okay, here's where this child is. For them to be successful not only in 2nd grade, but to move into 3rd grade and be successful in that very challenging environment with starting FCAT and things like that. Wouldn't you say that gives you that pre-knowledge, I guess?
Definitely. I definitely know what they're going to be getting into next year, and the curriculum is going to be a little bit more rigorous. I'm trying to really instill that love of reading in them now, because it's such a crucial age.
Well, it was your major.
And it was my major, yes, and I love reading, so it's something I'm passionate about. But they're learning now how to comprehend better. They've got their phonics down a little bit more, and now we're moving into the comprehension stage. And I'm just seeing them grow so much from beginning readers to more active readers. And I think for next year, definitely for third grade, it's going to be a skill
Absolutely.
that they really need.
Well, and it's not only the comprehension, but applying what they've learned in the testing, especially moving to Common Core, you know, and have this a little bit different than FCAT. Would you say that, in just listening to you and the fact that you majored in reading, what was the term you used?
Reading education.
Reading education. That, you know, you can always tell someone that whether they're a student, they're an adult, they're, you know, an older adult that enjoys reading, that they really enjoy life so much more. So, you know, you really focus on that, but don't you think that if they're successful younger, the more they will enjoy reading as they move through school?
Definitely. I think it starts at a young age, and you have to really give them that time during the school day to read. And I read aloud to them, and they just sit there on the carpet and they love what I read to them, and I make it fun for them. And I don't want to make it a chore for them to have to love to read.
Right.
And so since they are at a young age and I can kind of tap into them now while they're still young, I'm really trying to build that passion in them. Because I've noticed in my experience with intermediate, sometimes when they get a little older, that love of reading starts to fade a little bit.
Sure.
And so I don't wish for that to happen to them. I want
Right.
that to be a lifelong passion.
Right. But if they find something they can tap into, whether it's a topic or when I talk to young kids, when I go in to read to them, you know, and I've been to Alapatafout a couple times. I think you were there when I was there a couple times. What I tell them is, you know, when you read, you can make a movie in your own mind, and you're the director, you pick the characters, so that kind of, they go, oh, I'm in control. They kind of like that, even the younger ones. What do they like to read about as a second grader, and is that what you really focus on, the things they like to read about, so you catch them and they'll read on their own for fun?
I try to really tap into exactly the topics that they like. For example, we've been reading some fairy tales, but different versions of fairy tales. So
Like fractured fairy tales we used to have.
that
as
one,
kids?
and
Yeah.
yes, and like the true story of the Three Little Pigs, but it's from the wolf's point of view.
Oh.
So I'm teaching them point of view, which is a hard skill for them to learn, but they're learning it through a book.
Sure.
And so, and they really they get a kick out of it. They think it's great, and so I think it has to be something that's engaging and something that's fun.
And that's a sophisticated attitude as well, and something that, gosh, if we all learn to see things from another's point of view, perhaps we might. Things might be a little bit better, but that's true. And for a second grader, because they're only what, 7? You know,
7 or 8.
7 or 8, looking at things from a different person's point of view or a different view of a topic. So, Ms. Manis, when you visit Melissa's classroom, what do you see, and what are the children doing, and how are they learning?
Well, I have to say, although it's my first year at Windmill Point, I had not initially realized that Miss Lucretia was new to second grade. It was such a seamless transition. She adjusted so well. It looked like she'd been there forever, which speaks great volumes about just her flexibility and
Certainly.
just her initiative, and just the fact that she's very quick study. When I go into her classroom, of course, you know, the students are very much so engaged. You know, when we talk about, you know, our teacher evaluation system in Marzano and looking at those strategies, you have those teachers who just demonstrate that witness, you know, and they kind of have the eyes in the back of their heads, and, you know, they, know what's going on. They're engaging with the students, and there's just that love of learning, demonstrating the intensity and that enthusiasm that's very evident in Miss Lucretia's class. Also, too, just her challenging students, just kind of probing with them, just getting them to just push beyond, and just helping those light bulbs come on, and helping students to feel very, proud of themselves, just that they were able to contribute so much more than they thought they would be able to.
What are some of the topics that you cover in second grade? I know I was talking with another second grade teacher, and I very, very specifically remember second grade and what we did. I remember that's when I learned to tell time. Well, that's something those children probably already know way before they get to second grade.
They know a lot more than I thought they were going to know.
Exactly.
And it's funny because, especially lately with math, we've been doing a lot of subtraction with regrouping. And anytime I think I'm showing them a new concept, they're like, we learned this in first grade. So I'm like, oh, great.
They had a really good first grade teacher.
Yeah. So it is funny, the things that I learned in second grade myself, they already know coming into second grade. So I think it's much more rigorous.
Right. So what other kind of things did they learn in second grade? You've got, your math regrouping, but do you start in on things like social studies and other parts of the world and other cultures and things like that? Because again, they're 7 years old going
Yeah,
on.
so we start, talking a lot about Native Americans and just about how the Earth was, or the how Florida was founded, and we try to backtrack, and a lot of the concepts are hard for them to understand. So I have to find ways to tap into. Wow, they don't understand this as well as maybe 5th or 4th graders do.
Right.
So that's a little bit of a challenge too. Is some of these concepts are brand new to them.
Sure.
And so how do I introduce it to them? They
Right.
don't have the background knowledge of it already.
Well, and that's the difference, to introduce something to a child that young, if they'd had background experience, maybe, but not. So, at Windmill Point Elementary, Miss Manis, are there other roles that Melissa plays that you see her providing that mentoring maybe to other teachers, or leadership roles or things like that?
Well, absolutely. She has definitely emerged as a teacher leader. In addition, she also has served as a mentor for future teachers. Absolutely.
Through FAU?
Right.
Okay.
And that's important because, we
Absolutely.
always want to make sure that we are growing our own and building
Absolutely.
capacity. Miss Lucretia is also a member of, we have school improvement and school support committees, and one of the committees on which she participates is leadership design. So of course, Windmill Point is a school that actually we of course implement the 7 habits, of highly effective people, and understanding the implications that it has for students when we're working to instill those leadership skills within them.
It's right there on the wall as you walk in the front door.
Right.
Those kids see it every single day.
So, working collaboratively with other members from our staff on that committee, Ms. Lucretia provides provides teachers with different activities, in which they engage students to help to, develop those leadership skills, and then just kind of apply that, across the content in different areas.
Well, and I think that Windmill Point has been one of the leaders in our district in not only leadership development, but character development with Kids at Hope. It's one of the absolute leaders and first ones. In fact, when Rick Mitchell was here, he came to visit Windmill Point as a Kids at Hope really champion, and one of the first schools here that was. And then we became a Kids at Hope community. But a lot of leadership and character development, and I think that's
absolutely.
Do you see that in the show? Have you seen them over the years as it's grown and as it's matured? You see them, integrating that in their behavior and their character.
Absolutely.
Because my goodness, it affects everything.
Right,
It affects
it does.
discipline. It affects learning. It affects how they get along with each other.
And if they can learn it at a young age, then hopefully they can bring it with them into adulthood. And what a skill to use in your adulthood that even most adults don't use the 7 habits daily.
Everybody, knows who Stephen Covey is, but that's a highly sophisticated. But they've been able to bring it down to a youth level and still have those habits of every day. Talk about a little bit some of what those habits are that you try to instill in kids.
Sure. Some of the parents, it's funny because some of the parents actually were like, how are you going to teach habits to kindergartners or first graders or second graders? Like, they're not going to understand, but they really do understand. They understand to be proactive. They understand to seek first to understand, then to be understood, which is a big one, especially in second grade. You got to listen first before you talk. And, that's something that we work on every day. Synergizing, working together. Thinking win-win. How can we both win? How can we both get something out of this? So it's not just me always winning or you always winning. How can we both be winners? Sharpening the saw, knowing that it's not always work and it's not always play. You have to have a balance of both. And we talk about that a lot with the staff too, because it's important for adults to sharpen the saw as well.
Absolutely.
And one that we implemented last year was habit number 8. There's an extra habit, which is find your voice. And that's really important for students, is to be able to find their voice through presentations or through just getting up in front of the class and talking, or just saying, I have a suggestion, maybe we could do something different. Because even though they're kids, they still have a voice.
Right.
And they're important.
And so give us an explanation of what that means, is to find your voice.
Just
like your attitude? Or
just you're standing up for yourself, especially with bullying, or if somebody's bothering you, just standing up to them and saying, no, I don't like how you're treating me, and I want you to stop. But it could also be finding your voice as it's okay. You have to be comfortable with standing up in front of a group and talking and giving a presentation, or maybe reading a book out loud to your class.
Right.
So it's really not just the teacher. It's, everybody's involved. Everybody has a voice.
Right. And to be a leader, some people could be a good leader behind the scenes. But you have to be able to put yourself out there.
Exactly.
Well, it's been a really pleasure to get to know you. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, Miss Manis. We're going to be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
If you're looking for a new pet that you can cherish every day, consider adopting from a shelter. Shelters are full of healthy, loyal, fun, loving pets, eager to become a part of your family. A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet, so bring home your new buddy today. To find out more, you can visit theshelterpetproject.org.
And welcome back. And now we have with us from Lincoln Park Academy, Beth Q, who is an English teacher there, and her principal, Alan Cox. So thanks to both of you for giving us some of your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Beth, tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you're from, where you grew up, and how did you become an English teacher at an academic magnet school?
Well, I'm originally from northern Minnesota.
Okay. This is a little kind of different winter time for you.
Absolutely much nicer. Much nicer. Nice to not shovel anymore. But grew up in northern Minnesota. We lived in Michigan for a little while. And then decided it was time for a change and moved to Florida.
So did you move with your family as a child or
No.
as an adult?
No,
Okay.
as an adult. As an adult.
Did you always want to be a teacher?
I always did. When I was very young, I played school with my dog. My dog was my student. And that
Interesting.
was at a time when the country schools were consolidating, and my parents bought a lot of old school books. So I had the actual textbooks to use to play.
Pardon.
And that was my first student.
Oh, so you went to what you call a country school?
No, we lived in a city, a small city.
So what was the reference to the country schools?
When they were consolidating and closing.
So they bought those for you to use with your
to play
student.
with.
Now, did your student learn to speak like some, they speak or read or like they do with some now?
Very limited vocabulary.
Very interesting. How do you use those experiences though? With now, have y'all always taught high school?
Middle school and high school.
Middle school and high school, because when you came to St. Lucie, you were at Allapattah.
Yes. I taught 8th grade language arts, and that was the first year at Allapattah when they were in the temporary site.
Oh, at South Bend. Okay, all right.
And ended up also teaching 6th grade language arts and 8th grade science.
Oh, wow.
That year, so-
wow, you have quite a variety.
Yes.
What is it that you really want to instill in your kids in an English classroom? Is it love of learning? Is it love of reading? Is it the classics? What is it?
A love of reading and the belief that they can succeed, that they can be successful, that they can learn and do a great job and enjoy doing it.
Do you have projects for them during the year where they either group projects or things like that?
We do projects, a lot of reading, and projects to demonstrate that they've mastered the understanding, to give
Right.
them a different modality to show me that.
What do you mean by the term modality? What does that mean?
Well, a different way to show me, not just a test.
Right.
Because we all learn in different ways and express that we have knowledge in different ways. So it might be creating a poster to show me that you understand figurative language, that you can tell me what it actually is saying, as well as what does the author mean with that example.
It's interesting, especially if you have a classic like Beowulf or something like that, where the message is maybe not modern, but it still would be applicable.
Absolutely, absolutely. I like to have my students discover that the themes in literature don't change through time, that people are people, and no matter when a piece of literature was written, we can all relate to it somehow.
That's interesting, and I think that Broadway does that in a great way. For instance, Romeo and Juliet becoming West Side Story. I mean, things like that. It's still the same theme.
Absolutely.
Do they sometimes put on a play to exhibit what they learned in a book?
Little short pieces in the classroom, some acting out.
Is there much writing in your classroom?
Yes, we do a lot of writing also. I teach primarily 9th grade.
Oh, okay.
And so we don't have the writing FCAT, but we're
Right.
getting ready for it.
Right.
It's that in-between year where we're brushing up. Do a lot of journaling and some essays.
It's interesting. I want to, and this is coming out of left field maybe, but in high school, to have a conversation with students, to ask them, do they feel like the phenomenon of texting affects their writing? Do you have those discussions, or have you asked those questions? I just think, using numerals instead of...
It certainly has changed communication, and I think students have to always remember when they're writing formally and informally, because informal writing has taken on another dimension with texting.
Absolutely. It sounded like, Mr. Cox, you wanted to weigh in on that.
Well, it even affects spoken language,
Certainly
believe it or
does.
not, because they're using their abbreviations when they're having conversations with you, and we need to get them out of that habit when they're, particularly in the classroom.
Right, because, see you later, see and then a U and the LTR. I mean, it just, every time I think about that, and I use texting as well myself, but I'm a writer and I'm a word person. What are some of the real skills that you as a ninth grade, because you're the first high school teacher, the first year of high school, and high school's different than middle school, it's different than a K-8 school. What are the skills that you want to make sure that the students, when they leave your classroom, that they, is it about appreciation for literature? Is it about writing? Is it applying that learning, or is it all of those things?
I think it's all of those things and more. I teach pre-IB students who have been accepted into the IB program,
Okay.
And also honors level students.
Okay.
And one of the things that I do to get those particular students ready for their IB classes or AP classes or dual enrollment, and sometimes all of it, is to help them develop skills of organization and responsibility, to help them make that jump between not having as much homework to
Right.
having homework on a regular basis and relying on their planners to keep track of it.
And not only homework, but also projects,
Projects.
group work, and particularly for the IB students to be able to communicate to students around the world the things that they're working on.
Absolutely.
That is just so fascinating to me that you're developing these. Let's see, ninth grade, they're 14, 15, something like that. That they will be conversing with children all over the world that are at the same level that they are. Is that exciting to them? Is it frightening to them? How do they approach that?
They approach it with, I think, a great deal of interest in other countries and other students. It's opening up new worlds to them. And the IB program is very global, and it's enlightening. It's enlightening for them.
And do they understand as they do that in other countries, public education is not like what it is here. We're much more inclusive, much broader spectrum of cultures and personalities levels than in other countries. And I'm hoping that that's one of the things that the IB program helps them understand, the blessings that they have in this country.
Absolutely, absolutely. They look at the blessings that we have in America, the advantages that we have, as well as the disadvantages that you might find in another country when
Absolutely.
we explore the literature of other places.
What do they like to read, ninth graders? What do they like to kind of venture out into something, a new author, or do they bring things to you, say, can I read this for my whatever project it is they're working on? They find a new author that you might not be familiar with.
Absolutely. I get a lot of good recommendations of things to read from my students. The Hunger Games, of course, has been a big hit with our students. Divergence is another one.
But then there's always the classics. Or is there some segment that always will, like the Beowulf example?
Very often lately it seems like students have been interested in Jane Austen,
Oh, really?
which is enlightening. I don't know if it's Downton Abbey that's getting that interest going
Could be.
again, but
It typically is the whatever's in the movies, whatever is perhaps popular in either literature or a movie or a play or something like that. So, Mr. Cox, when you visit Beth's classroom, what's it like? What do you feel when you're? Because just in talking to her for a little bit, it seems like she's very calming, but she really wants to challenge those students.
there is a high level of rigor in her classroom, but she does it by having the kids discuss the work among themselves and then sharing out.
Okay.
She does activities that require them to know the subject matter to be able to answer whatever she's put before them. It could be questions,
Right.
it could be a scenario, it could be a play, but they have to have background knowledge for that. So she's had to have built that in before they can actually deliver on it. One of the things about her classroom that's rather unique, we actually have two classrooms in our school, but she has 30 tablets in her classroom, computer tablets that are the touchscreen ones like the teachers use, and they are constantly using those to gather information, to write with, to organize their thoughts, their activities, and so forth within the classroom. And purposely picked her because I knew that she would use the technology, but she uses it to enhance the learning that's going on in the classroom.
Gotcha. And that, that technology, and if you only have 30 students in your class, it's manageable. But you recognize that's what they're going to be using. All of them will. But, they're going to, particularly in the IB, and they use that to be able to, like you said, organize their thoughts. Do you find that they adapt to it a lot quicker than we do?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right, and they use that in their work?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're very comfortable with that. Very comfortable with that.
Now these students that are working together, particularly those that are going into the IB program, they're going to be working together a lot for the next 4 years. But this year, for many of them, although they may have been together at middle school or K-8 school, this is the first time they've become a group working together. Do you see dynamics of how that works when they're in ninth grade? Because ninth grade is just such a precipice year.
It absolutely is. It's interesting to watch them when they start. A lot of them don't know anybody in the classes. And as they build those relationships and get more comfortable, you see the dynamics grow and change, and they become a very tight-knit group by the end of the year.
Absolutely. Now, do you share with them the story about your teaching your dog as a young person?
I sometimes do, yes.
I bet they're enamored of that, though.
Yes.
I can just see you doing that. Of course, in the wintertime, I'm sure it's inside, not outside.
Yes.
But now, how long have you been at Lincoln Park?
This is my fifth year.
Your fifth year. Okay, and you were at Allapattah for a couple of years before that. Now, you must have taught someplace else before coming to St. Lucie County.
In Minnesota.
In Minnesota?
And Michigan both.
And Michigan
Yes.
both. Okay. Do you find...
She also lived in California in between Allapattah Flats and LPA.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, my husband's a nurse,
Okay.
and we decided to have him travel nurse.
Okay.
For a year, take a year off, and so I left Allapattah. But the economy started changing, and we decided maybe we should get back to real life. So after spending some time in San Antonio and then in Los Angeles, came back, and that's when Mr. Cox hired me for Lincoln Park.
Fantastic. Now, was he traveling with an individual patient, or just he was traveling
With a company,
With
a travel
company. Oh, I
company.
got you. Okay. Oh, I got you.
Where there are hospitals that have a nursing need, they have travel nurses fill in that need.
I see. Like, for instance, there might be an outbreak in some area, and they just need people there to take care
It
of.
could be. In Florida, a lot of times in the wintertime, hospitals have travel nurses come to help with the snowbird volume that's not consistent throughout the year.
Right. When you were traveling, did you ever visit schools or kind of see what are they doing out there?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't.
You were busy with him, though.
And our two children.
Oh, well, there you go.
So,
how did they enjoy that experience? Because did you homeschool them?
well, my daughter was in ninth grade, and so she did FLVS for that first semester.
Right.
And I homeschooled my son, who was in fourth grade then. Fifth grade. He was in fifth grade.
Right.
And we incorporated a lot of the local places into our learning. When we were in Texas, we really studied the presidency.
Sure.
Johnson visited his home, visited the Alamo.
Right.
And based a lot of what we did on our surroundings.
That's very interesting. Well, that's a great thing to do, for you to be able to use the surroundings. Now, how long were you in LA? Would you have been able to do the same kind of thing there?
It was 3 months.
Oh, okay.
He's
So
3
you probably
months
didn't have
in
a lot
each
of time
place.
there.
No.
Yeah, so.
Went to Disneyland.
Well, that's a learning experience all of its own.
It is.
a real melting pot there. Well, Ms. Q, it's been really delightful to meet you and get to know you, and I can just envision your classroom. I shared with you before it began that I always pictured myself as a high school English teacher, but realized I didn't have the patience, which I know it takes. But you have an enviable place at Lincoln Park with the students that you're working with, and I know, as academically gifted as they are, it's an extra challenge for you to keep up with them, keep ahead of them, I guess I should say. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much
And
for having me.
congratulations, you bet. And thanks,
Thank you.
Mr. Cox, for
You're
being
very
here.
welcome.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
We're going to be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
Up, college is hard. Down, those books are heavy.
My sport is football, but my passion is education.
Right up here.
So every year, I take promising high schoolers on a college tour
Getting lights there, darks there.
to show them that higher education means a brighter future. My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Find out how you can live United for education. Give, advocate, volunteer. Go to liveunited.org.
Do you wear this?
And welcome back. And now we have from Fairlawn Elementary, Lauren Black, who is a first grade teacher there, and also she's a Kate Middleton. Well, go ahead and say it. She's a Kate Middleton, lookalike. And our principal, is always good to have you here, Marcia Cully. And
Thank you.
Good to see
My
you.
pleasure.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about Lauren Black, Kate Middleton lookalike.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was born and raised in St. Lucie County.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I went to Fairlawn Elementary.
There you go.
Yes, I'm now teaching at that same school. Then I went to Lawnwood
How
for a
cool
year.
is that?
I know, it's so cool to be on the other end of it.
Absolutely.
And then I went to Lincoln Park for middle school and high school and graduated there, and then went on to IRCC when it was the community college, and then up to University of Florida
Good for you.
to finish my degree. So.
Yeah. Did you always want to be a teacher?
Absolutely.
I was
From
going
the
to say,
moment I
it
stepped
exudes from
in.
you. Yeah, it exudes from
The
you.
moment I stepped in my kindergarten classroom, Miss Babcock, back in the day, I just
Her
knew.
daughter was here a little while ago.
Was she?
She's,
Yes. And I had her
Teacher of the Year.
grandson. Well, I didn't have him as a student, but a few years ago he was at Fairlawn. So I remember putting him in his vehicle in the afternoons at parent pickup. So it's cool to see the other end of it, the other
Right.
side. Yes,
Well,
very
plus
neat.
the local connection. I mean, this is so
Absolutely.
great that we have, that you've come back. Did you go anywhere else between college and here? Or did
No,
you-
I came home after I graduated with my master's up there, came back, and I was actually at South Bend for the year that it was open, and then got transferred to Fairlawn, and it was just like, a blessing in disguise. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, your exuberance just shows, I mean, that you really enjoy what you do.
Yeah,
Now,
thank
you taught, you said, for a year in kindergarten, and now you're in first grade?
I taught, my first year was in second grade.
Second grade,
Second
okay.
grade, and then I was placed at Fairlawn and into first grade. So, and I've been teaching first grade. This is now my 4th year, but 5th year overall.
Okay.
Teaching. Yeah.
So what's a first grader like? What's your
Well,
typical
very
child
different
like?
from when I was a first grader.
Yeah.
But they come in, they love to learn, and that's the thing. They walk in with a smile on their face, and the connections that they're making nowadays, it really blows your mind. You think back to when you were a first grade student, and what they're just thinking nowadays, and the connections that they make, and they want to know more. They want to know why, why. So, and it's, nonstop every day. I mean, all
Right.
day long. But it's so fun to be in, that grade. They really, like I said, they want to be there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They don't have the fears that they did maybe in kindergarten.
Absolutely
and
not.
They've learned how to stand in line, and they've learned how to
Yes.
raise their hand, and they know that
They can leave mom and dad on the first day of school without any tears. So,
Well, the moms have tears.
absolutely,
I mean, the kids are
absolutely,
fine.
yes. But they really do enjoy it, and they make such great friendships. It's the perfect age, that 6 to 7-year-old range. It's just
Yeah.
such a great age.
Yeah, my granddaughter's 6, so that's I can just see her in your classroom. You guys would hit it off
Absolutely.
extremely well.
Thank you.
So, what are some of the kind of skills, not just academic skills, but with your children? What do you want them to walk out of the classroom with you at the end of May?
Well, one of the very important things that is respect. Bottom line, academics, to the side. That's very important. But it's respect for not only myself, but for all the the students within our class and within first grade. I think it's such a pivotal time in their life to really understand and how to build those friendships and how to keep them and how to be truthful. I think that's my #1 goal by
How
the
to
end
be
of
a
the year.
friend.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then academics, like we were talking about. Just being able to now it's the reading paragraphs at the end of first grade, which is
Incredible.
mind blowing, absolutely. But just
like I said, my number one rule is just to be truthful and respectful. And it's really neat to see them evolve and, you know, to really think about it. You're like, okay, is that it? Are you tattling? Or, you know, I mean, just to help them through that process socially, building those skills.
That's
it's
really
huge.
interesting.
Absolutely.
Especially at such a young age.
Absolutely.
And they respond to it?
Yes, they do. They're
Yeah.
great, and they help one another with it. And just, you know, for instance, you know, when they're building friendships or when you're picking that citizen of the month, for instance, you know, every kid, it's a fair playing field. You know, it's not like, oh, just because academics, you're not there academically. That's not it. Every kid, it's open for every single kid. And it's really neat to see them build off one another.
Do they vote for the Citizen of the Year, or is it you select them?
It's mainly me. It is my decision, but I mean, like I said, every single kid, every month, is right down there, and I go through. You know, I mean, you really look at every single kid, the whole package, not just one particular area.
Right, and you're looking at the behaviors. I mean,
Absolutely.
do you keep track of it, like you mark down in your book or whatever? That you
Yes,
kind of
and
keep
they have
track
a
of it?
calendar that they take home as well, and the parents initial every night, so they're also held accountable. And that's another huge skill that we teach them, is how to be accountable and responsible at such a young age.
Yeah, well, and that's important because, you know, if they can't work with each other,
right,
that's a huge part of their learning. That's going to
Absolutely.
make a difference.
And we've been doing a lot of Kagan strategies and collaborative learning and just teaching them how to work in a group. You know, it's hard for us sometimes because we feel like they should know how to do it. You know, it's easy and we sit back and we're like, okay, you're going to go into this group, and this group, and really it's a learning process for them.
Right.
You know,
now they may have been a sister or brother.
Absolutely.
But that's not necessarily the same thing because family dynamics
Absolutely.
are not. It's not necessarily a democracy.
Absolutely. And that's what I tell them. I said, we're a family. So if one part of our family is not with us, then we're not as strong as we could be. So that's one thing that we really work on.
Yeah.
We're really, And at the end of the year, it blows your mind just how compassionate they are, you know, towards one another and how understanding. And they realize, you know what, this is my consequence for this behavior. Or, you know what, I'm rewarded for this. And they really grow off that and really help one another.
Is that something that you just developed on your own, that it was just by something you saw or something you experienced maybe that, you know?
Well, definitely. I mean, I can definitely remember that through my elementary years, but also from my home life as well. But it's just, you know, the way I was raised, it's respect and, you know, and being truthful and honest. And, you know, it gets you places in life.
Right.
You know, so it really helps, you know, like I said, build those relationships, and people are, you know, willing to go above and beyond and help you out a little bit more when you're truthful with them and you're, you know.
Or when you have their back.
Absolutely. So, you know, like I said, being 6 and 7 and having to go through those skills, just those social skills. I mean, that's a lesson in and of itself.
Do you find the dynamics of, like, the social leaders will emerge? I mean, even at 6 or 7 years old, they're so young.
Absolutely.
But you can see the ones that just automatically become that leader.
Absolutely.
And hopefully they're being a leader because of the kind of behaviors that you've been talking about, not others.
Yes, I mean, I see that all the time. And even the ones that were hesitant before are starting to emerge now. So the ones that were, you know, wanting to sit back and let somebody else lead that group, for instance.
Right.
Or, you know, that learning center. They're now the ones that are stepping up.
That's
and
very
they're
cool.
they're not afraid to do it. So that's really neat to see now. And, you know, like I said, January, February time is really when the first graders start to open up more. And, you know, it's not so much review or anything, you know, like that. And it's not independent yet. They're right in that middle stage. So it's really neat to see that they're, you know, taking a stand.
That's really great.
Yeah.
When I walked in one day to Miss Black's room, it was so neat. It was around pumpkin time, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and the kids were estimating and predicting how tall they were based upon the size of the pumpkins. So they'd have to lay on the floor and then put pumpkins next to them with their partner and then see if their prediction came true, you know, whether it was right or wrong. And it was really fascinating to see that level of skill from the students to make that prediction and then to determine how successful they were with their prediction.
Well, I think one of the things that I'm hearing you describe, a safe environment.
Absolutely.
So that in that estimating, even if they were way off, it's okay. Because you've created that environment of trust and respect and you know, then, I mean, they're learning. I think that's what you described when you said they just open up because they're not going to be embarrassed.
Right.
they're not going to be judged. They're just going to
Absolutely.
be learning.
That, you know, that safe environment's so important. And just like, for instance, today in our math, we're doing double-digit addition. And I don't remember doing that in first grade.
I know I did. Not until third grade.
You know, and it's so neat. Even though they're wrong, I say it's okay. You know, walk me through, how did you get that?
Right, exactly.
And they feel comfortable. And then when you show them and you can show them the corrections that they need to make, then they're like, oh, I get it. So, you know, I tell them all the time, it's okay to be wrong.
Right.
That's just a part of learning. That's a part of
Absolutely.
Miss Black's wrong all the time, you know? So there's just little things, you know, I learn every single day.
Certainly.
So it's very important for them to,
Right.
you know, learn that as well.
Right. What else do you see, Miss Cully, when you go into Miss Black's classroom? And I imagine there's a lot of high-level energy, because that's how she is. And I imagine there's a lot of trying things and centers going on.
Well, there are a lot of center activities, but the one thing you notice is that it's controlled. You know, the kids
Controlled chaos.
Controlled chaos.
Organized chaos, yes.
But the students know exactly what is expected of them, what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, and the expectations for their behavior when they are accomplishing their center work. So, you know, you can ask any student, what are you doing? And they can tell you what they're doing. You can say, why are you doing it? Well, we're doing it because. So they really do take ownership of their academics and their behavior, and that level of independence is just really high in her class.
And that independence is born out of, like you said, you know, creating that respect for each other. And I'm sure that if they know that they're respecting others and that they're being respected back too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What academically skills do you want to make? You spoke about respect. And I
Yes.
think that's extremely important.
Yes.
And out of that, there's all kinds of things
Absolutely.
like feeling safe in the classroom and all that. But what about real academic skills?
Well, I mean, as far as, you know, we have the new Common Core state standards that are
Right.
coming out. And it really does push the children. Not that they can't do it, but it really does
Right.
push them from, you know,
And
what
they
I've taught.
typically can.
Absolutely. You know, from what I've taught in the years past. And I mean, academically, the skills that I want to see, I mean, just being able to read independently and to, you know how to figure out unknown words. If they come to a word that they don't know, teaching them the strategies to figure out that word.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's very important. And like I said, that's the skill in of itself, you know, teaching just the strategies.
Right.
And so, I mean, with the reading, I mean, and to let them know it crosses all areas that we teach. I mean, you have the social studies that as long as you know you can really focus on the reading component, the social studies and science come, you know, and it's easier for them.
Sure.
And then, like I said, with math, I mean, their main focus is just the adding and subtracting now, you know, and being very fluent with it. You know, sums up to 20.
Right.
So, I mean, it's interesting, and you push them, but they can do it. And you teach them little shortcuts here and there, but, you know, it's really amazing what they're capable of doing.
Right. I was talking
Academically.
with another teacher a couple days ago, and she was talking about how, and these are just little things that you come up with, like you
Right.
said, little shortcuts, but she had one child that continued to try to put 2 digits in one column. And how she got him around it was, she said, you can't put 2 feet in one shoe. And I think that's probably the kind of things that you're talking
Well,
about.
I kind of had the same thing, but mine is, we always say if 2 numbers are beside one another, we say it's either a brother, sister, or sister, sister, brother, brother, whatever it wants.
Right.
And we have to separate them and put them in their own room.
Oh.
So, you know,
okay.
you draw the wall down the middle,
Right.
you give them their own room, so
Right.
they know that there can't be 2 numbers in
Right.
one room together. So
Right.
basically the same thing.
Yeah.
But little tricks like that, you know, we always, for instance, today, the very first thing, what's our first step? We've got to separate them. If we don't separate them, then the 10s and 1s, they get confused. So really it eliminates that. And that fear that might come up of getting it wrong. You know, the first step, we're all starting off on the same foot.
Well, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that same foot that you can't put 2 of them in one
Exactly.
shoe.
Exactly.
Are those things you share with parents too when you have parent-teacher conferences, so they can continue
Absolutely.
that same kind of
Absolutely,
thinking?
and I send weekly emails, sometimes 3 and 4 a week, depending on, you know, what the targets are
Right.
that week. But definitely, I definitely share that with the parents, and, you know, tricks that they can do here and there.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Now, I know that Miss Black has only been at Fairlawn a couple of years, but how other ways does she interact with the school family or other roles she might play?
Well, she's very much an integral part of our success. She's a first grade team leader. She is well organized, so therefore, as a team leader, excuse me, they're chart everything, graph everything,
That's okay.
I am so
That's
sorry.
okay. We can go on. So the kinds of things that you do are exactly what your principal is describing. You do that in
Absolutely.
your classroom as well.
Yes. Yes. The data driven, yes.
Technology she is the queen of technology in our school. So the teachers really look up to her for answers and solutions. And last year she became chair of our technology committee because we had someone quit in the middle of the year. So she helped us with all our technology for the year. Then she took over the school yearbook and completed the school yearbook.
Wow.
So she finished our school, yearbook.
Right.
And then she volunteers every afternoon to put students in the cars. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a big thing to you.
No, it does to me because I did it myself, so I
But
know.
every afternoon she is out there helping
Right.
to load the students.
Right.
And so now we have a backlog on the row which she loads because all the kids
want to see her.
want their parents to come into the red lane. Mother, do not come in the other. I want Mrs. Black to put me in the car. So it's even former students, And so there's some students that the parents know.
Yeah.
It has to be
Absolutely.
Miss Black putting me in the car.
Well, that's a bond that you've made with them, I
Yes.
guess, when they were
Yes.
your students,
Absolutely.
or even maybe even though you taught second, perhaps bonding with some students who were already in fourth grade.
Absolutely.
But it says a lot about you, and I think that says a lot about your connection with this community and the fact that you went to Fairlawn. And now do your students know you attended there
Yes,
as well?
yes.
And I bet they think that's very
Oh, they do. They love it. And when I say it's the same cafeteria, they're like, no way! Because they think you're so old. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
of
really,
course.
come on. But yes, they think it's so neat. And I think it's neat as, an educator to be on the other end of it.
Right.
And to really see, this is what my teachers did for me.
Right.
So to be on that end now and to give that back to the community and back to those students is amazing.
Well, you're a very you make a great impression, and I'm sure that the parents loved having their children with you. You're high energy. You have great goals for children, particularly as it relates to their character.
Absolutely.
And we applaud you and congratulate you for representing such a great staff at Fairlawn.
you.
So,
Thank you. We're proud of her.
Absolutely, and thank you,
you.
Ms. Cully,
Thank
as
you.
always. And we're going to be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
Nice. No. Oops. Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Moms everywhere are finding ways to keep kids active and healthy.
Works every time.
Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov.
And welcome back. And now we have with us from Palm Point Educational Research School at Tradition. If you have to write that every time you say something, it's a lot to write. We have Meredith Andrus, who is a teacher there. This is the first location where you've taught, coming to us from Pennsylvania. And Deborah Snyder, the principal there. So thank you. You Pennsylvania natives to chat a little bit about sports going on there.
We're excited to be with you today.
Thank you so much. Meredith, tell us a little bit about you. We know you're a native of Pennsylvania, but where'd you come to us from?
I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
And after graduating, I substitute taught there for a couple months or so, but I was looking for an opportunity, and I found one here. Through some friends of mine, they told me about Palm Point, and once I heard about the school and the technology that would be available and the type of learning that they were interested in, I knew it was the place I wanted to start.
Well, you had an opportunity on steroids because not only was it a new school, but not necessarily a new concept, but just lots of different kind of opportunities, and I would imagine growth opportunities for teachers too, because there's different styles of learning for you as well.
I think it was great it being my first kind of teaching experience, because I got to learn so much with so many wonderful people. They taught me so much, and even though I haven't been teaching for long, I feel like they've taught me years and years worth of strategies and techniques and things like that.
Well, I can tell you that's pretty much a mark of a Deborah Snyder school, because you really stress collegiality, sharing with others, involving the community, everybody benefiting everybody else. So that's a mark of one of her schools. So yes, you are very fortunate. So what do you teach?
I teach 7th grade math.
Okay.
I love math.
Yes. Was that something you did well in school?
Yes, it was something I did well in school. I didn't do well with reading and writing. I was actually diagnosed with dyslexia when I was in school, so I struggled so much with that. I really went hard into the math and really found a passion for it, different ways of thinking about it, different ways of explaining it to my peers and teachers. So I really like it.
You know, one of the things that I really like to do, and I think it keeps my mind sharp, is I do a crossword puzzle every day, or so, you know, at least if I miss a day, I'll make up for it, because I'm a word person, and I think that keeps your mind sharp.
Yeah.
What do you think about, you said there's different ways of teaching. You have the math game of Sudoku. Do you utilize things like that in your classroom? Because, see, like, that doesn't mean anything to me. For people like you, it probably jumps off the page, and you can figure it out just by looking at it.
I like to incorporate different strategies because I know that my learners are going to learn differently. So we do manipulatives, we'll play different types of games, we'll do different strategies together in groups, talking about it, drawing it out. So I like to hit all the different areas.
So in 7th grade at Palm Point, what are you really working on now? Is it pre-algebra? Is it...
We're trying to get them ready for algebra, so my kids will move into the algebra class. So it's that math. I always joke around with my kids that they'll take this math home and their parents aren't going to be able to help them anymore. It's over now, so it's time for them to be more self-sufficient, paying attention, taking good notes, and asking questions, which is a big deal.
We do, though, have online support, though, for parents, and I would have to do the same thing to be able to go back, as much as I enjoyed math as well. But there is, you know, there is that reading component in math, because in algebra you get to word problems. So there is that component. So you're probably better at it than you think. It's just you didn't apply it the same way.
Yeah, I've developed different strategies throughout my education. That's what I tell my kids. Even though math for them might have been a struggle like reading was for me, you know, I still was able to go through high school, get a college education. You just might have to go about it in a different way than your peers.
Right.
So it's them finding their way to be successful.
Right. Now, 7th grade, though, it is a pivotal year because you're fortunate to be in a K-8 environment. They're not having to make that transition in 6th grade to, you know, having different teachers. But do they have the same kind of situation where they go one teacher for math, one English? So they do have that movement. They get used to that for high school. It's just they don't have to change, you know, it's not a different campus, I guess is what I'm saying.
We work in learning teams, so in the pod they stay in all day pretty much. There's a different teacher for language arts, a different teacher for civics, math, and science, and they go out for their electives.
So they go to the teacher doesn't come to their pod. Okay.
Yeah.
So they do get that movement. That's important for them because you have to learn to be disciplined and make sure classroom on time and make sure you have the right books, and it's all about preparation. Now, Miss Snyder, when you visit Meredith's classroom, tell us what it's like when you go there. What do you see?
It's exciting.
Yeah?
When you think about a teacher really engaging their students in learning, that's what you see in Miss Andrus's room. We talk a lot about Common Core and preparing children for Common Core, and we have to teach them to be thinkers, and we have to move away from that direct instruction to the teacher as the facilitator, and that's what you see in Miss Andrus's class. Her passion for math definitely has rubbed off on her kids. I think there used to be like this feeling that not everybody loved math, and maybe boys loved math more than girls, and you don't see that in Miss Andrus's class. They come early to school to be tutored by her.
Oh, great.
For math. They will have an extra minute of the day, and I'll see her talking to kids, and it's about math. So her passion rubs off on students. I just have the highest respect for Miss Andrus, and I personally have a niece who's a junior in college in Pennsylvania, and she wants to be a middle school math teacher.
Oh, great!
And
you have your own little line there.
And I have said to
little Pennsylvania Turnpike coming down.
Absolutely, and I said to Allison, and this is going to be the year that she's going to spend spring break with her Aunt Deb, and she wants to spend time in Meredith's classroom because there's no better way to learn how to engage the kids and involve the kids. technology. She's excellent
There's
with
an
the
app
use
for that,
of tech.
huh?
Absolutely.
Oh,
So it's one of those when you're in your job and it's just you just know it's time to see kids and you need something really good. Never will you go into Miss Andrus's classroom that it's not something really good.
Yeah. How do you use everyday experiences to help make math come to life? You know, the application of math. I mean, especially in algebra, you know, you can always talk about, well, geometry, I guess, more like what's the best way to get from point A to point B. So how do you bring that real world experience into your math room?
Well, we talk a lot about money and shopping. Usually is the best way to get into it. But I mean, in 7th grade, we are starting to talk about careers, like what path they're going to be taking and what math they're going to need in order to get to their careers.
Right.
So, I mean...
Give us some examples.
Well, I have one girl, I'm sorry, she wants to be a teacher, so obviously that's an easy one.
And what about somebody might want to be a CPA? You're going to have to look at statistics and accounting and all those kind of things.
We talk about, I like to bring in my personal family experiences. My dad's an architect, so when we do scale drawings, we'll talk about how he uses them in his job. You know, he can't make a drawing of Palm Point life size. That would be too much paper. So how can he do it? We talk
That's an
about
interesting concept.
my mom, she does accounting, so we talk about later in the year we'll use some Excel spreadsheets to help them get some practical applications, how they can use the formulas and the equations that they've been learning about and put them into practice for the future.
Right. Well, and in architecture, you've got geometry, you've got trigonometry with calculating the arcs and things like that. So that's the way to, and I didn't really know that trigonometry was really what surveyors use. I didn't know that until way after high school. But if they just told me that, I would have appreciated it a lot better. What's the sine, cosine? I don't get that. But, so what are the kind of things that excites the students in 7th grade?
They like to know where the math comes from instead of just telling them, like Ms. Snyder was talking about with Common Core coming, not just this is the formula, learn it, memorize it.
Know who Euclid is.
We go through the process of discovering it. So, you know, we'll take a cereal box and we'll measure the sides and try to find the surface area formula. Or we'll use squares.
You mean of whatever the cereal is? Whether it's a square
the box.
or the box, okay.
Yeah. Or we use squares to prove the Pythagorean theorem. A lot of my kids knew what that was, but didn't know where it came from or how to do it without just being told it. So that's a lot.
Well, it's exciting for them when it works and when they can make it happen.
And it means more to them, and I think they're more likely to retain that information since it has a deeper meaning than just, I need to know it for the test.
Now, I mean, I know the atmosphere at Palm Point because it's an educational research school.
Absolutely.
It's not only okay to try different things, you really encourage research-based, not just a whim.
Absolutely.
But it sounds to me like in your classroom, and you from her administrator, she's willing to do that and willing to say, let's try something a little different.
Absolutely.
That might engage and catch their attention.
Absolutely. Something that Meredith did early on at Palm Point was she looked at virtual manipulatives versus your actual concrete manipulatives. And she worked with a group of students.
Like moving cones and squares on the computer.
On the computer. And, you know, we know that they are so engaged in technology. And did that work as well. And so she looked at that. And something else that Meredith has been very involved with is she serves as a leader in the district for math. Meredith has served on many district math committees, helping develop scope and sequence, does a lot of modeling with students from FAU, and those key things that are unique to Palm Point. She's always gone above and beyond and taken those leadership roles.
I'm sure when you're considering adding someone to your staff, that has to be a big part of it.
Absolutely.
They have to be collegial, and they have to be risk takers, but have to be confident in their risk taking.
Absolutely. That is a real key, and something that we used 5 years ago, and we're still seeing the same thing. If you are set in your ways, Palm Point is not going to be the school for you. And that's where we are in education, everywhere today. But maybe 5 years ago when we were interviewing, there were still some, this is a textbook that I am going to use, and this is going to be my instruction. And, we talked to Meredith, and it's a brand new school, Meredith. What are you going to do? How are you going to guide your instruction? And really focused on that scope and sequence and those types of things.
She was before her time, is what you're telling me.
It was, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Data-driven. As a team. Share some of the things you do as a learning community with data.
We sit down and we look at our data after each of our assessments, and we'll talk about different ways that we can help each other. So I'm not alone.
Teacher
in my
to teacher,
team.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not alone. So my science teacher might go ahead and say, well, I can cover a little more, help you with this type of math concept with conversions and volume. We've even done cross-curricular activities where we'll partner up. For instance, me and the civics teacher have one planned pretty soon for a road trip around the country using maps. So I get to work on...
This is virtual or for real?
This is for, well, they're planning it. They want to take us on a vacation. But so she gets to cover her different regions of the country and different types of things in the state that are available. And I get to go over scale and turning inches into miles and all that stuff. So we really look at our students and their progress and think about how we as a team can really work together to improve their knowledge.
And I really think that's the way, as you said, education is going, because different teachers can bring different skills to different students and types of learning and this kind of thing. But how much fun to be able to work on projects like that.
Yeah.
Because then you might be able to do that in real life as well. But on the trip, you're just planning it on the route. You're not actually even doing it virtually.
No, they just planned it out. That's all.
Yeah. Well, and the social studies piece too comes into there, and the different parts of the country, and then you've got your history too along the way, and even geography for that matter, and of course touching on the capitals. I don't know if I guess they're probably studying capitals at the time. Well, it's been a real pleasure to see you again, and
thank you.
I know that you have a lively classroom, and I know that your students do very well, because just how you describe them and how you describe what you're doing, it sounds like you're having fun, but your face lights up when you talk about the things that you're doing and working with your peers there at Palm Point. So congratulations for being selected by them to represent them. And I always thank you, Ms. Snyder. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
"7,000 high school students drop out every school day. That's a line of desks more than 4 miles long. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step."
And welcome back. And now we have with us from Parkway Elementary, Jennifer Sajak. She is a kindergarten teacher there. Thank you for being with us, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And Yukola Barrett-Baxter, her principal. So thanks to you for being here as well.
Thank you.
Tatiana's in the next room. So, Okay, Jennifer, so tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're from Syracuse, New York. How long have you been here?
This is my 3rd year teaching.
Okay.
I started at Parkway as an ESE teacher, and this is my 2nd year in kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They won't let you pass on to 1st grade?
No, I guess not.
How long, is this your first job teaching, or did you teach up north as well?
I only did some long-term substituting up north. So, yeah.
Okay. Where'd you go to school?
Lemoyne College.
Okay.
Yeah, right in Syracuse.
Did you know you wanted to be a teacher when you started college? Was that one of the things that...
I did, actually. I did. My aunt taught 2nd grade for about 30 years of her life, so I was always around her, and I always just knew that that's what I wanted to do, too.
Yeah. Were you, when you were a little kid, did you light up your teddy bears and teach them, or teach your siblings, or something like that?
My older brother didn't really have that too much, but yes, but I did with all the friends on the street and stuff. We always played teacher, and it, just inspired me a little bit more to do what I love.
Absolutely. And I guess in the wintertime, when it's snowing outside, you have to do inside things. You can't be outside too much.
Yeah,
So
you
that
definitely do.
Right. Was kindergarten something that you were drawn to, or was that just what happened to be available?
I always knew I wanted to do the primary grades.
Really?
I did student teach in first grade, so I fell in love with it right away. I also did another student teaching in special ed in second grade, and I definitely grew a love for special needs students too, so it's just what I love, what I like to do.
But your classroom now is a traditional classroom.
It actually is an inclusion classroom, so I have many ESE students in my classroom as well.
You know, it's interesting though, I would bet that you find in your experience, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but that when you have inclusion, when you have an inclusion classroom and you have children with special needs, on both sides of the conversation they develop appreciation for each other.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I always find that the kids in my room, they're always willing to help each other, and between the relationships that I've built with them and they've built with each other, we're just a family and we have each other's back.
And that's just, kindergarten. I mean, if they can learn that social skill and that appreciation for differences at 5 years old, and have that become a part of their character and a part of their thinking, what a great asset for people, I say, people.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we're even to the point now where they're just so accepting of each other's differences that they don't even notice it anymore.
Right.
We're just so used to it. So.
Exactly. And what a gift you've given to them to have that to take with them on.
Yeah.
So in kindergarten, they come to you. Some of them have had pre-K.
Many have not. Yeah, many have not.
Some may know numbers. Some not. Some may know how to write their name. Some not. But as you get to the end of the year, and here we are in the middle of the year, as you get to the end of the year, the expectation is that they're all up to about the same level.
Yes.
So how do you get there when you have so many varied levels of understanding or learning?
Well, it's very tricky, but I think the most important thing to remember is just that they're all so unique, and you have to really be able to work with everyone on every level and help them when they need it and work together, and it comes.
Right.
Now's the time in January where we're really all so familiar with our routine, and this is really when that light bulb goes off for them and they really start picking up and starting to read. I'm getting a lot of great readers in my classroom now too. So they're going to be ready for first grade.
That's good. Well, and even the mechanics of, and people don't think about that because it is such a simple mechanic, but if they're not familiar with books, they don't necessarily know that the pages turn to the left when they first come to you.
Many of them, we have to start from the ground up. So.
Yeah. And now the ones that have had that experience or that exposure, do you find that they, sitting next to their friends, say, "No, this is the way you do it"? So you have
they're little teachers themselves. They definitely work with each other, and they're always so kind, and they're so innocent at this age too that they're ready to help and ready to learn, and they're so excited for it too. So
I'll bet you.
That's the most rewarding for me. They're so excited about it.
As her principal, when you have a big smile on your face, as your principal, I bet you're thinking of images that you've had of her in her classroom or her working with colleagues. What about Miss Jack really stands out to you?
Just her willingness. She's had some challenges in terms of students with special needs. And just whatever is asked, let's try. It's sure. Or can we put into place? Sure. Or we're bringing you a new student. Oh, all right, come on. So she's just always been that hub in our school building as it relates to primary, in terms of being that place where kids will be safe and accepted and taught, which ultimately at the end of the day is the most important thing. But if all those other needs aren't being met, then we know that it's difficult for children to learn. So
I think that safety factor is probably the biggest piece, because if they're afraid of making a mistake, they're never going to learn.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So what's your typical day like, or is there such a thing?
Well, no, there isn't really quite a typical day, but I do try to keep the routine. There's definitely structure. But they throw you curveballs from the second they walk in, and I think we have fun. We have fun in our classroom, and I think that that's what was instilled with me to be a teacher, because I always had fun in school and I was always excited to go there. And if I do that for them, then I know that we've had a successful day. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, the excitement that you have about it, I'm sure, rubs off on them. So when you have your first parent-teacher conference with a new student, what is it, the message that you want to get to the parent? Is it the safety of the safe environment? Is it you want to make sure the parents understand what the expectations of students are? What really is important to you for
I
parents
think
to
I always
understand?
try to go first with trying to make sure that they know that their child is going to be comfortable in my room, that their kid is first and their needs as a family is first, and I'm always willing to go the extra mile to make sure that the parents feel comfortable in my room too, because I share their child 8 hours a day with them, so 6 hours a day, and it's their home away from home. So I always try to just make sure that they know that I'm there for them just as much as their own parents are. So
yeah, well, and the parents too, because I will bet you the first day of school with many of those parents, the kids are fine. They're excited. The parents are the ones
crying
that are
the parents off. Oh yes,
they're
every
having
year.
difficulty.
Yep.
Well, it's their baby. So when you have your children, that when they come to you, do you find, and I can't remember if you told me how many years you've been teaching kindergarten, but do you find that leaders emerge? That at the first of the year, they're all about the same, but after a while, when they start working with each other, it's just human nature. That leaders emerge, and they'll help others, or they'll come up and ask you what they can do to help you.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Right now in my classroom, I have 14 kids, and I would say about a good 6 of them are leaders. So we have a bunch of leaders and, some followers too, but the leaders really help to bring out the best in the other students too, and of course they're my little helpers too, so it's a benefit for me as well. So
what are some of the things that they learn in kindergarten? I mean, we all have seen that, and I love that poster that says all the things that are important in life I learned in kindergarten.
Reading is the biggest part of kindergarten right now. We touch on everything: letters, sounds, a lot of read-alouds. That's one of my favorite things actually to do in the classroom, is read stories. And I find when I'm excited, they're excited.
Sure.
And when I see the whole class quiet and listening to me, that's just the best feeling for me. So always just trying to make it more exciting for them with reading, because that's such a big part of kindergarten, just to get them ready for the rest of their lives with reading, really.
Right.
So
what about social skills as well?
Oh, yes. Oh,
standing
of
in
course.
line.
Of course. That's a daily procedure. So, and that's tough at the beginning of the year too. I mean, they're coming to us fresh from home or from wherever they've come
you're
from
herding
with
cats,
pre-K.
is what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's just, constant routine and repetition, and they get there. They're there now, but they always need their little reminders, of course, too. So we all do.
I just wonder at the end of the year if you then have conversations with first grade teachers, and I'm sure that happens, but I mean, is it something you really do, that you meet with first grade teachers independently as a group to say and talk about each child and their different learning behaviors?
Oh, absolutely. Our group, our team at Parkway is just phenomenal.
Your teams are multi-level. They're not like your kindergarten team or your
I'm saying our team, a building as a whole.
Oh,
I just think we're phenomenal. The people I work with are wonderful. She's really done a great job to pull us all together and be a leader for us. But we all work together so well, and even the kindergarten team that collaborates with first grade, we make sure we need to know what they need to know for first grade. And I just had a conversation the other day with a first grade teacher, and I said, what do you think we could work on more for kindergarten? And they were saying, giving a few tips about different sight words and things that we could just try to, boost it up a little bit to make it a little bit easier transition for them to first grade. So always trying to look for the pointers to make it better. So.
And Yukola, your philosophy of that, is that like a philosophy that you have of, like she said, it's just we're all a team. It's not the first grade team or the kindergarten team. We're all a team.
Absolutely. It's everyone's responsibility, regardless of what grade a child may be in. If a child is lacking something, we all need to figure out what that child needs. And again, it's not just classroom teachers.
Right.
At Parkway, the maintenance staff is responsible for learning. Cafeteria staff is responsible for learning. Everyone that comes in contact with a child on our campus is responsible. So if it's just a matter of going into a classroom and reading a story or having a child read to you, our front office staff is constantly going in and doing read-alouds in classrooms. It's Parkway Elementary, and if you work at Parkway, then you are responsible for every child on that campus. So,
well, and it reflects in your success as well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it does.
We try.
It does. It really does. Any other grades you think you'd like to teach now that you've been in kindergarten?
Well, I love kindergarten. I'd love to stay there as long as I could. I don't see myself ever going higher than 3rd grade, but hey, I mean, everyone needs a teacher, so you know, I don't know.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
but my heart is in the primary grades. It definitely is.
But the longer that you're there, I think, and what you'll see is, and this isn't a reflection of what you'd like to teach, but that the longer that you're there, you'll have 1st graders and 2nd graders and 3rd graders that seek you out or want to show you what they've learned. And have you had that experience yet?
Oh yeah, all my kindergartners from last year. Our lunches sort of go back to back, and they all run up and give me hugs, and I'm just off. It's such a great feeling.
Well, you know, that's one of the big rewards for being a classroom teacher. I mean, it's certainly not monetarily and certainly not schedule-wise. You have a lot of work to do, but it's that intangible that keeps good teachers.
Yeah, and I even had a student that I taught last year. He no longer goes to the school, but they called me up over the summer and wanted me to go to a baseball game, or over the fall and wanted me to go to a baseball game. So little things like that. I enjoy meeting up and making those connections and building the relationships with my kids in my class.
Well, that says a lot for you, too, that they would take the time during the summer to reach out to you.
Because they knew that they couldn't, unfortunately, come back to Parkway, so I was glad that they met up with me because I wouldn't get to see them at lunchtime like I do the rest. So.
Well, again, that speaks volumes as to how not just the students, but their parents feel about you. Well, it's been a real pleasure to get to know you and talk with you, Ms.
same with
Sakis.
you.
Always nice to see young, fresh faces and that energy and that enthusiasm and that passion about teaching. I mean, she just lights up when she talks about it.
That's her all the time.
And thank you as well for
You're
being
welcome.
with us.
Thank you.
And we're going to be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
What does it take to start something? A little time. A little exercise. A little laugh. A little adventure. A little help. That's all it takes to make a big impact.
As he always talks about, he had people in his life that really helped him out, and he wants to be that person in my life.
Just like he is, I was like that at 14. I know exactly what it means to be a 14-year-old guy.
I think that's why we have a good relationship.
It's fun and cool and nice.
You get to see like how personality develops.
Our friendship is good.
At Big Brothers Big Sisters, a little bit of your support can go a long way towards making matches like these happen. Start something today at bigbrothersbigsisters.org/startsomething.
And welcome back. And now we have with us from Port St. Lucie High School, Michael Memnaugh, who teaches biology, earth sciences,
Earth-based science.
Earth-based science. And you've been in Port St. Lucie High School for how many years?
This is my 5th year.
5th year.
Yep.
Okay. Now, do you teach all of the students in the school, or just freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors?
The way our school is, most of the schools in the county, we have different academies. I get the students from the business academy.
Oh, okay.
A lot of the automotive people like that.
Do you find that their attitudes in a business academy would be different than if they were in the medical academy? Or, I mean, is it really different? Not really.
There's differences. They're all basically the same. I think they have certain quirks. If you get the students from the Performing Arts Academy, they tend to be a bit more outgoing and definitely artistic with the projects. Business Academy, in a lot of ways, I think they're more factual, and they just get down and they do it the way they should without trying to fluff it up a bit.
I think that's an interesting perspective because, like you said, because with our high schools, students can choose when they're in 8th grade or 9th grade, and they can change what interests them. So that's what will keep them in school. So, if they're in the performing arts, then would you change how their projects are for earth-based science? Or
I think so. The fact that you get the students interested in one branch or another, I think you really should tailor certain, especially labs and projects, to their tastes. Letters and sciences would focus more on academics, more professional writing, I believe. Performing arts, I would love to teach academy, a lot more artistic projects they could work on. Business, I do a lot of functional projects as far as like meteor impacts or human body representations.
Sure.
Trying to do the modeling down. I think that's kind of their strong suit with the Business Academy.
Right. My mind's going with this performing arts. Now, how would you tailor something in biology or earth space science that would have kind of a performing arts side to it? Would it be props? Would it be,
Art is what I'd like to focus on with that. One video I show my students in Earth Space, there's this one spray painter who, he makes incredible artwork. He has spray cans, he spends maybe 5 minutes, and he spray paints these beautiful planets and star systems.
Oh, really?
Just incredible stuff.
3D or just flat?
It's just flat, but it's
yeah.
incredible. I have no artistic skills at all. So, stuff like that I would love to be able to do and have the students get into it. Performing arts, I have had students do things. I had one student who wrote probably 5 different raps for me throughout the years. One was on starfish, one was on Acel organelles. He loved music, and he was a great performer.
That's great.
Most students are a little bit too shy to do that, but if I could find students like that, I would definitely love to focus on that.
Well, and that's the philosophy of creating these academies where students can, like, for instance, let's say in language arts, if they're in the performing arts, then they could read books and write things about famous actors or musicians or something that kind of would pique their interest and keep them. It's like we talk about reading. It doesn't matter what kids are reading as long as they're reading.
Right,
and
absolutely.
they'll read things they're interested in.
Right.
Were you always interested in scientific things as a little kid? I mean, you collect rocks. And
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I was in a Boy Scout, so I always loved nature and astronomy. Those are by far my biggest interests. I had a rock collection. I definitely loved the stars from a very early age. And just early on, my friends were always kind of jealous because I knew what I wanted to do at a very early age. I just stayed on that footpath. My parents were never into science. My brothers aren't into science, so I don't know where I got this affection
maybe
for
another
it,
life.
Perhaps. It's definitely stuck, though.
Yeah. Do you have like a, gosh, I can't think of the name of the piece of equipment that you watch the stars. But
A telescope.
Telescope, thank you. The word was not coming to me.
I have a $5,000 telescope.
Oh,
I
my
just found
gosh.
out my 6-year-old son broke it. So
Oh, no.
little sore subject, but yeah, I'm trying to fix it. He felt pretty bad about it.
Well, and he's worth a whole lot more than that. But
absolutely,
still,
absolutely.
was it something you did as a kid? Did you follow astrology? Not
Astronomy.
I guess astronomy, not astrology.
Yeah, I always loved the planets. I was always fascinated by the other galaxies. It's just, to me, it's beauty and it's science at its core, trying to figure out how everything got here.
Right.
It's always fascinated me. I don't know why, but
I just thought of a connection to performing arts because the song "Follow the Drinking Gourd" is following the Big Dipper,
yeah,
I guess.
that's
So
true.
there you
That's
go.
very true. Yeah. I'll have to look into that. Yeah.
There's your connection for you. So how many students do you have, Michael?
Guessing approximately 170.
Okay. And they're at different stages. Like I said, they could be 10th graders, 11th graders. 12th graders.
Biology is strictly sophomores, and in earth space is juniors and seniors.
We've heard the term STEM bandied a lot about it. It's become a very well-used acronym: science, technology, engineering, mathematics.
Right.
How has the focus from, you've always been interested in those,
Right.
even as a kid, talking about all the things you were interested in, but the political, if you will, focus on STEM activities, how has that really impacted how you and your colleagues go about your planning your curriculum, planning your work together?
It's definitely a much more in-depth planning process. We get together as a biology team about once every 2 or 3 weeks to try to see where we are to make sure we're on the same schedule as each other and try to plan out the intensive labs that we need. It's definitely much more focus and I'll say scrutiny as far as you're under more pressure to get the job done. But at the same time, it is a much more in-depth lab, and students do gain a lot more from being able to complete the STEM than prior labs we might have done in the past.
Well, and it's elevated the work that they do in terms of career development and things like that. Do you really, and we hear a lot about that. Do you feel like that, and the focus in our region, too, because of bringing the research, do you feel like that's going to pan out for it? I mean, will our students be able to find careers like that? Is what we're hearing, I guess, what scientists like you, or scientific interest folks like you see?
It definitely prepares them for success at a much greater degree than before. Prepares them for college. They get used to the labs that they're going to be doing at a college level if they choose to pursue a scientific career. This summer, I did an internship at Torrey Pines out in Tradition Molecular Institute, and they did a lot of really in-depth research on new drugs. They're trying to make painkillers, and I was selected as a teacher to be able to help them with that this summer. And just to be able, because I come from a science background, a job I had before teaching, so to get back into that background and actually get back in the lab and do the routine stuff, a lot of people call it monotony, but it brought me back to where...
In depth.
Very much in depth, but it brought me back to where I should be having my students traverse that with science. I think my second year, I was still trying to catch up with teaching. I think a lot of the labs I did probably weren't nearly as in-depth as they are now. And again, that internship I had this summer definitely solidified how in-depth science should be and the steps we should take and how I need to bring my students to have a full understanding of the subject I'm trying to teach them.
I had heard that there was one of our teachers that were there, and I did not know it was you because I never really read anything about it. I just knew we had some students and some teachers and some labs around the county. Tell us a little bit about, you said you worked in the science industries before you became a teacher. Tell us a little bit about that.
I never thought I'd be a teacher, to be honest with you. I went to school for wildlife conservation at University of Florida. I always loved biology, so I had this dream of working out in the woods, outdoors by myself, which is what I did. I took a job as an environmental consultant, which that entailed if you have a piece of land that's not developed, my job would be to go out there for the developer and see if there's any endangered wetlands or a bald eagle, gopher tortoises, and things like that. If any of those were identified on a property, my job at that point was to get the permits to make these things go away. So I always loved nature. I made a lot of money doing it, but every day I went out there, everything I saw that I appreciated about nature, it was my job to make go away. And it got to me.
It's contrary to your gut.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to work every day miserable. My wife was a teacher at the time at Port St. Lucie High School, and she kind of talked me into getting into the teaching profession. Never thought I did. It was definitely scary to do because we had one kid at the time, and it was a big pay cut, but very thankful she talked me into it. I honestly do love teaching.
Good. That's great. Well, perhaps what you love about it is maybe you can imbue that love of nature to students that, do you see that any of the students that you have now, and you haven't been doing this very long, but you see that's a kid that could really get there.
Yeah, I mean, I have students I've had that said they got into, I got one girl in a forensics program, she said because of me, whether it's true or not, I don't know.
Well.
One guy's studying astrophysics because of the astronomy class. So it is great to hear this years down the road. The very first day of school, I tell my kids my goal is not to have you guys be a biologist in the future. I know it's probably not going to be a path that people go on. My ultimate goal is simply to make them appreciate science. And exactly what I tell them, I want you 3 years from now, 5 years from now, sitting around the house, you turn on the TV, there's a science program on, and you sit there and watch it. That's my goal, is to make them interested in science. So many come there bored of science, and science is such a fascinating subject.
Well, it's not real to them.
Right.
So what you're doing is making it real to them.
Right.
I mean, even going back to when you were saying you would find you work with a developer, and they'll go for tortoises. You would have to find somebody to relocate them?
I would do that myself.
Okay. Or you'd make them go away on their own? Yeah. I mean, I've worked in building schools, and you still have that situation. But typically, I mean, the law, you're supposed to relocate them. It doesn't always happen.
Right. It depends on the circumstances.
And I'm sure it would bother you. It's just like any species. That is, they were there first.
Right.
So that's kind of the way I feel about it, is we need to make accommodations for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in terms of the students' labs that they do, can they choose kind of what topic to do it on, or you kind of give them guidance?
I definitely give them guidance on it. They have freedom to do maybe their own thing with the lab. I was doing a classification lab today, actually, in class. They had 23 different pictures. One was a squid, one was a unicorn, some were real animals, some weren't. Their job was to divide these organisms, to classify them. Any way they wanted. They could do plants, animals, they could do cute, ugly, tasty, non-tasty, just to get them separating stuff and thinking how they would classify these themselves. Although they do have the same lab, they do have freedom to do it how they want.
And then are they graded on that, or is that just part of,
They're graded on their understanding of it.
Yeah. And do they understand how they can apply that to the real world? Like you said, you want them to appreciate science, so it's like the History Channel. I just love to watch the History Channel. And then there's Modern Marvels or something like that. Is that what you're talking about, that kind of thing?
Yeah, right.
Because they were talking about, the other day, about building tunnels underneath water. Well, and I would imagine they have to look at the same kind of things you do in terms of conservancy.
Oh, sure.
Is that what some of the, when you were talking about that, I thought how interesting that you would do that right out of college. But you're idealistic.
Yeah. Most of us are at that time. I think if I would have gotten into teaching right out of college, I don't know how far I would have made it. I'm definitely glad I had different experiences before I got into teaching.
Right, because you can see how it applies to the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And that would be great if your students would continue on. Tell us about, we don't need to know his name, but tell us about the student that's studying astrophysics.
He was always a straight A student. He a brilliant guy, very smart, dedicated, which obviously we love as teachers. But when he came into my class, he liked astronomy. He liked looking at the stars and the planets, but that was about it. When in Earth space, we teach more in astronomy, but when we got the astronomy unit, he really perked up. He loved it. He kept coming to me, telling me stuff I didn't know before, because he'd go home and read stuff and watch stuff. So I had no idea he got into that program. Probably he graduated 3 years ago. So last year he came to school and he dropped in to say hi to me, and he told me he's going to school for astrophysics.
That's great.
Yeah, it blew me away.
What can you do with something like that in terms of a job or a career?
Probably stuff more in depth than I'm capable of. With all the talk about trying to go back to the moon or trying to land people on Mars in years. Yeah, you got to work. Engineering is a big part of building those ships.
Sure.
The trajectory. So it's new telescopes are coming up with trying to analyze different atmospheres, see what gases are made out of. A lot of things opening up that weren't here 10 years ago.
Would that Earth Sciences piece be part of the curriculum? Could be non-Earth science as well, like all the stuff that's coming back from Mars now. Is that something you could use? Because what they're really looking for is if life can survive there.
Right.
So, look at, is it the same? I was looking at something the other day and it was showing like craters and things like that. So it looked like craters here or on the moon or something like that.
Yeah.
So this totally would be an application.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And as far as Earth, all the planets form pretty much the same, especially the 4 interior planets. They have a lot of the same geology. Craters here from the same way craters there do. Water has the same properties there and here. So if we find a crater that's in the right spot, maybe there is ice there, maybe there's liquid water underneath the surface. It does have big implications for the future if we are to leave this planet one day.
That's something you guys are going to have to think out.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Third Rock from the Sun, that TV show, and I was like, I wonder why they call it. Oh, well, there you go. It's Earth.
Yeah.
If you're looking at your students, whatever course they're in, whether it's biology, and I think you probably already answered this question, but what do you want them to take away from your classroom?
Honestly, I just want them to find it more interesting than when they came into my classroom, which I am very successful at, I got to say. I want them to ask me questions. I want to see that spark in their eyes, and I get some pretty, especially biology, some kind of crazy questions, which I support. They're curious about stuff. As long as they walk away more interested than they were when they came in, I think I've done a successful job. Science to a lot of kids is scales and atoms, and to them it's boring. And I'm just trying to open their eyes to the world of science and how it affects your daily life. You see it everywhere you go. You cook with it. It's everywhere.
Oh, applied science is everywhere.
Yeah.
An automobile is about science.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
engineering is really science in motion. So if they understand that, science is all around them. It's not just about volcanoes and scales and things like that. So it sounds like you're doing that, though.
Yeah, thank you. Any job you get, you're going to be working in science, whether you're throwing a football, anything, cooking, manufacturing clothes, it all involves science. So.
It's funny you say that because in watching the playoff games this weekend, looking at the weather, which is science.
I'm a big Denver Bronco fan.
Well, today you're not happy then.
Yes.
And we'll talk off camera about whether you think he should have taken the knee at 31.
Okay.
But the science of whether they should wear the gloves or not.
All right.
Because of how it feels with the ball.
Sure.
That's all science.
Oh, yeah.
It's applied
Absolutely.
science technology.
The clothing they're making to support the body in the cold conditions or just the muscle fatigue.
The thermal stuff inside.
Yeah.
That's a whole other show.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today,
Thank you
Michael.
very
It's really
much.
been a pleasure to talk to you.
Pleasure
We'll
here.
talk about the Broncos in a second. Okay. We're going to be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
$7,000 high school students drop out every school day. That's a line of desks more than 4 miles long. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step.
And welcome back. And now we have from Morningside Elementary, 3rd grade teacher Jackie Clark. and her principal, Cortina Belgray. Thanks to the both of you for coming and joining us in the studio. We love to introduce our community to our fabulous professionals in our classrooms and get to know a little bit about you. So that's what this is about. So tell us a little bit about Jacqueline Clark.
Well, I was born in Miami. I grew up in Tampa mainly, and that's where I went to school. That's where I went to college. And I moved here about 5 years ago, and I really like it over here on this coast.
On this coast?
Yes.
It's a little different.
Yeah, it's a little different, but I do like it.
Yeah.
I do like it.
Did you go to University of South Florida?
I did. I went to USF.
Which is really interesting because that's really the genesis of where our PBS programs all come from.
Yes.
Did you, when you were studying there, was that really being developed, or was it?
It
not?
was, yes. I took a classroom management class with a professor named Dr. Brunley, and I remember him always talking about being positive with the kids and making them feel comfortable in the classroom. And then when I actually got into the classroom and started hearing more about PBS, I thought, well, this is exactly what I was learning about, and it was neat to make that connection.
Right. I wonder if if he was connected to that same research group that was developing the whole program, and he just knew the right terms to use and.
Yeah,
it's too coincidental to not be.
Absolutely.
So third grade is such a pivotal grade. We hear about that so much with FCAT, and fortunately, and fortunately, it will change in years to come. But you're still dealing with FCAT right now. What are your goals for your students when they come in? And of course, they're probably at very different levels when they come in, depending on where they come to us from. To get them to about this time of year, that they're solid in their skills, they don't have the stress, they are not worried that they're not going to do well. Of course, they're going to have that anyway. Yes. What do you do to kind of make sure that they understand that they can do it, that they're well prepared?
Well, I think the number one thing that I focus on with the students is not only giving them the skills they need, but giving them the motivation and that comfort level in the classroom to know that they have all the skills that they need, and to teach them strategies on how to utilize those skills. So, I mean, it does involve a lot of teaching, knowing exactly what they're going to need to know to be successful, but also, like I said, giving them that motivation and making them feel comfortable and showing them that I believe in them and setting high standards and just showing them that I know that they're going to make those goals. And I think that that's a big part of the battle is showing them that they can do it and making them believe that too.
Right. Well, and sometimes we see in the press and comments from the public that they say, well, you're only teaching to the test. Well, you have Sunshine State standards that are driving what they need to know, and that's what our curriculum is based on. So it's not really teaching to the test. Right. It's helping students understand the skills they need to do well on the test. But it is, it's about what's been established is what they need to know at whatever point in their third grade life. What are third graders like?
Third graders are full of energy. They're full of excitement. They come into the classroom smiling. They're ready to learn. And I think that's one of my favorite things about being with third grade is they're at that age where they're starting to gain some of their independence. They're starting to learn a little bit about themselves and the world around them. But they're still innocent, and it's just, for me, it's a perfect age. This is my 6th year teaching third grade. Oh, okay. And I haven't wanted to move since I've entered third grade because it is such a great year. They're just learning to discover different things about the real world. And
well, that's good because a lot of people don't want to teach third grade because of that.
Absolutely.
Because it's being the first year at FCAT. So, Ms. Cortina Belgray, what do you see when you go into Ms. Clark's classroom?
All the things I thought I would say when I interviewed her for the job. Because as you said, many applicants, many teachers are steering away from the FCAT grades. It's a high-stakes test, and there's a lot of pressure. Jackie came in and has just done a phenomenal job with our third grade team because we have several new members and several veteran members on that team. And she has learned and gleaned from them. And on the reciprocating side of that, she has shared information and trained them in areas. And so I see a classroom that's full of life, full of energy, lots of activity going on, lots of learning going on, and a safe and nurturing environment. You can hear that she's very soft-spoken, and very nondescript, but loves teaching, loves her classroom, and goes over and beyond always for her team as well as her students and her parents.
Was that something you always so nice of you, that you always knew you wanted to be a teacher?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. There was a short period in college where I decided just to kind of veer off the path and maybe go into business or English, but it was only a semester, and I realized immediately, no, I definitely want to be a teacher, and it's something I've wanted to do since I was a kid, even before I was in school. My mom bought me a grade book and stickers, and I mean, to me, that's what being a teacher was, just giving out stickers and giving grades. So little did I know it was a lot more.
Back then.
Yeah. So it's a little more work than giving out stickers and grades, but I still love it, and I wouldn't consider doing anything else.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a lot more work than it has been in years past, you know, with all the changes we have in the state of Florida and all the changes in evaluations and all that, but that's not about teaching. Teaching is about children.
Wow. Absolutely.
Yeah. What is the most enjoyable part of teaching to you?
The most enjoyable part about teaching is when I see a student that's been struggling with something finally get it, and it's like a light is behind their face. Their whole face is illuminated. They have this joy that they finally mastered something that they haven't been able to do, and for me that's the moment that always gives me that little thrill, like, oh, I gave them that feeling.
Yeah.
And to me, that's one of the most exciting parts of teaching, is seeing a student that has mastered something.
What about how do you involve technology in your classroom? How do you use technology? Because kids are technology natives. I mean, they're very savvy. Yeah, they're very savvy. They know how to use a computer. They know how to use Google. They, you know. So how do you bring that resource into the classroom?
Well, I'm very fortunate to be one of the classrooms on campus that has the CAB system and the document camera.
Okay.
So a lot of things.
For our audience, that's the audio-visual, computer-driven program.
Yes, and I can project things from my computer onto a large screen for the students. And one of the things that a lot of our programs has is, you know, technology components. The math program, Journeys Math, has or Go Math, I'm sorry, has iTools, which has lots of different manipulatives, which they can use the manipulatives on their desk, but then if they have them in front of them on a large screen, you know, it's very interesting to them, and it makes little noises. Our science also has some interactive science experiments for things that we may not necessarily be able to do in a classroom, but they can watch it happen. Little video clips. There are lots of science video clips. Students are still practicing multiplication. We've moved into fractions, but they're still practicing their multiplication facts. And you know what? They won't pick up those flashcards, but if you have them do a time drill on the computer, they love that.
Now, see, to me, that'd be harder. You know,
we learn the old-fashioned
way, right?
And any time they have a keyboard in front of them or a screen, it engages them a little bit more. So whenever I can, I try to bring outside things in, even if it's just pictures to introduce a vocabulary word, or if there's a particular candy in the story and I don't think they've heard of it, you know, we can, you know, display a picture. So anything to use that computer, they really like.
So when you said like bringing a picture of something, you mean bring it in on the screen?
Bring it in on the screen through the computer, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now, do they have any little adaptive technology that they can use, or is it mostly you're directing the resource onto the screen?
I'd say most of the time it's me directing the resource. However, once students have seen me do something so many times, I do have different students rotate and help. In the science program, they can drag different things. In the math, there's the math iTools that we have. They can go through and drag things to show their answer or to show equal parts of things. So yes, they do get to interact and help, and that's their favorite part.
I bet.
Yes.
Because I think they like to help each other and they like to interact. Plus, they can get up and move around.
Absolutely.
And they like to do that, too. What do they like to read? What do third graders really enjoy reading about? I mean, is it the obvious things like their pets or, you know, their vacation or...
They really enjoy reading about animals. And I don't know if that's because I'm an animal lover, but I have a lot of animal lovers this year. Books about horses, dogs, cats. My boys love the graphic novels, any of the graphic novels, you know, the Captain Underpants books, the Diary of a Wimpy Kid that has the little photos.
Right.
Anything that has the comic book style pictures, they love that. But a lot of animal books too.
Right. Now, do they write, do they in third grade, and in third grade they're what, 7, 8 years old?
8 and 9.
8 and 9 years old. Do you have them write about what they read?
Absolutely,
in paragraph form, and they have to, you know, it's actually practicing for Florida rights and things like that.
Yes.
So,
yes, they do incorporate a lot of writing into their reading in small groups when I meet with them individually. they always have an assignment to do in their notebook after they've met with me, and a lot of times it's either a question that I've asked to get them thinking, or they have to respond with a paragraph. And now that we're halfway through the year, they have to support with at least 3 details to support their answer. So they're fighting me a little on that one, because that's something new we're doing. But it's, you know, it does prepare them to not only write for next year, but it also prepares them to justify their answers, which is an important life skill. To
Absolutely. Be able to defend how you found something. What other roles does Ms. Clark play at the school? I'm sure she's involved in other activities throughout your whole campus.
Yeah, she has helped redo our book room, taken those skills that she's learned from all the trainings that she's had as far as literacy is concerned, helped to reorganize it because we moved it this year. Spent a Saturday just recataloging and making sure that books were in order and making it easier for user-friendly for teachers to be able to go in and check out books.
Now, is this so that kids can go take home?
Well, yes, it's books that teachers can use in their small groups in their classroom. So it's not quite like the Media Center. It's a separate literacy book room. She's also involved in on our literacy committee, and they're in the midst of planning a Dr. Seuss Day this year.
Oh.
And she's going to be very instrumental in, I believe, doing invitations and phone calls and decorating and getting all the bulletin board information out. And,
lining up the green eggs and ham.
Yeah, the theme this year is going to be all the places you'll go, which I think Jackie was very instrumental in as well, because that's such a great career choice that it really...
I give that as graduation presents a lot.
Yes, it's an awesome book
even though they're for seniors, they love it.
Even adults are still loving that book, you know, because we're still going places as well.
Absolutely.
And she's going to be involved in the district literacy event that's coming up in April. She's going to be working with some students, doing some readers theater, and making sure our students in school are represented when that comes up a few months. And of course busily preparing for FCAT and working with teachers to do those kinds of things. Doing some tutoring after school and many things.
Right.
Yes.
Now, when you meet with parents, which I know you do frequently, because you are preparing for the FCAT, are there things that you help parents to understand of how to help their children prepare, not necessarily academically, but emotionally and things like that?
Yes, that's a big part of the conversation with parents, because especially in 3rd grade, parents have heard about the FCAT. They're concerned about it, they're nervous about it, they're stressed about it. And one of the things I always talk to parents about is the motivation piece. You know, the kids will have the skills that they need. They need to believe in themselves, and so that's something that I talk to the parents about, just different strategies that they can reinforce at home. Things like, you know, just taking a second and breathing and really, you know, focusing on what you're reading and, you know, underlining things, because when kids, I notice when they're underlining things and they're going back and finding answers, a lot of times that it proves to them, okay, well, it's here, I know it's here, and it gives them more confidence that they need. So little strategies that I do in the classroom with the kids, I do share those with parents as well, that they can do at home to reinforce that.
Well, and that's always, even with any skills that you're developing in the classroom, you know, if the parents and the teachers work together, they can provide that emotional support and making sure they have a good breakfast and all that kind of stuff. Because it's just the first time they've been under a stressful, standardized kind of testing situation.
Yes, and I think a big part of it is to see that we're not so nervous, because kids pick up on feelings very easily.
Sure.
And if we're stressed and their parents are stressed, of course they're going to be nervous and stressed. And so I think a big part of keeping them motivated is to stay positive ourselves as adults and to show them that we believe in them.
Well, and you're so calm, and you're so, I'm sure that they, like you said, they pick up on the behavior aspects of their teacher. Well, it's been really nice to get to know you and talk to you and bring you to our community, that see the kind of quality people we have in our classrooms.
It's fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for having us here. It's been fun.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for having us, as always.
And we'll be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
Up, college is hard. Down, those books are heavy.
My sport is football, but my passion is education. So every year I take promising high schoolers on a college tour to show them that higher education means a brighter future.
My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Find out how you can live United for education. Give, advocate, volunteer. Go to liveunited.org.
Do you wear this?
And welcome back, and now from Savannah Ridge Elementary, Rebecca Petrie. She is a third grade teacher, and also her principal, Latanya Green. Thank you for being here, the both of you.
Thank you.
So, third grade is a pivotal grade.
It is.
Yeah. How many years have you taught third grade?
This is my second year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. What did you teach before that?
I taught second grade for 8 years.
Okay.
I moved to first grade for 2.
Okay.
And now I'm in my second year of third.
So you know really the preparation of first grade and second grade, and so you know what to expect when children come in your classroom.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been really helpful, especially targeting the lower performing students. They really know the foundational skills that I'm looking to teach them to move forward.
Now, have all these years been at Savannah Ridge?
All of them.
Oh, you're very fortunate that you've gotten to stay in the same place. And
I have been.
You have a pretty stable faculty there, too. So, what drew you to teaching in the first place?
Oh, wow. I don't know. My first day of kindergarten.
Yeah? Really?
I came home. My mom loves to tell the story. I came home, I ran through the front door, and I said, I'm going to be a kindergarten teacher.
Oh.
Okay, so I've never taught kindergarten.
Right.
You know, 12 years in a classroom, I think I kind of made it happen.
Well, maybe you can graduate to kindergarten someday. No.
Don't give her any ideas.
Don't give her ideas. But that's a great story. I mean, that really is a great story because it made such an impression on you, and I'm sure that the reason is because you were successful. And, you know, you're going to enjoy and want to do what you're successful at.
Well, I'm a St. Lucie County kid.
Oh,
so,
okay.
You know, all of my years from kindergarten through FAU were all here.
That's fantastic.
So I really feel like I know my kids.
You know your kids.
I am one of my kids.
Of course you are. Where did you go to school?
Floresta.
Okay.
Dan McCarty.
Okay.
Southport. PSL. IRCC, and then FAU. All in the county lines.
Well, you know, it's really interesting. What's a good story about you is that it shows our community that you can grow up here, be well educated here, stay here, and have a good career.
Absolutely.
Because you're a walking picture of that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. And now is your family still here as well?
Almost all.
Yeah.
Yep. My parents live down the road. My sister lives right next to them, and my in-laws are down the other way. My brother just moved to Missouri last year, so that's been rough, but we have enough to fill in the blanks, you know.
Right. So what you do is probably meet in the middle street somewhere when you have your family dinners. You don't have to go very far.
No, we don't.
Just park right in the middle. Nobody can get around you. It doesn't matter.
Works for us.
Tell us what your kindergartners, your third graders are like.
Oh, my goodness. They keep me active. I am constantly moving from one side of the room to the other. I have a really good range this year. Some special needs and some high performing. So,
now, would you call your class an inclusion class?
Yes, I have a lot of push-in support. Throughout the day.
And that means that resources come to your classroom.
Yes, and I said at one point, my door is just a revolving door because when somebody comes in, somebody goes out, somebody else comes in, and it's really
like the cafeteria door, you know, you got one in and one out.
But it's good because when the support comes from other classrooms too, they're like, oh, you know what? The teacher that I just left tried it this way.
Oh, great.
You know, and so I'm able to give them some tips in working with my students, but they're also giving me some strategies too. And that's new for me because I've always had my special needs students pulled out. And so this year to have the support in the classroom has been just such a difference.
Oh, that's great. And plus you have your little messengers that then go back and forth. You have your communication system.
Absolutely. Yeah. I get to find out what's going on next door and around the corner.
Sure.
So
and how you can apply that for your kids.
Definitely.
Yeah. How do you, particularly with children that have challenges, they're going to have to take FCAT too. You know, so are there any more, maybe perhaps, emotional support you need to give to them, because their learning is not going to be any different. They learn just as well as anyone else does, but the emotional side of the support that they need.
Right. I have actually I have 2 students in particular that I think of that have really challenged me to pull back onto my first and second grade experiences. And even though I'm teaching them third grade skills and materials and they're doing quite well, I still have to approach them at sometimes with a younger child mentality. And at times they're surprising me because they'll tell me, oh, that was so second grade. You know, so they're kind of helping me too to understand, okay,
find
you know,
that
we're
medium.
ready to move forward. And, you know, my other students have been so wonderful with them. And as much as I'm encouraging them, they are too. You know,
Really?
it's okay.
Give us an example.
Well, I have a student with Asperger's, and
So they're high performing.
yes,
Right.
high performing. She has a great spirit, but her feelings get hurt very easily. And my class is just so wonderful with her. You know, they kind of help her along, and they let me know when she's having, you know, not so good day, and you know, so they're kind of my eyes and ears too. That they're
What a great thing
they're
to
really
hear
looking
about,
out for each other.
You know, 7-year-old kids or 8-year-old children that will be sensitive enough to understand that and know what to do about it. You know, and to ask or to tell you so that you can help that child.
Yeah.
So
I have a really good group of kids.
yeah, you do. You really do. That sounds great. But you must create that atmosphere. So, Ms. Green, I bet you can describe that. You're nodding your head that she provides that atmosphere so they do feel safe.
And very welcomed. And that's the key part in teaching, and I think building those relationships with students. And Ms. Petrie is very, very good about that. The impact that she has made with her classes always rolls over into the entire school building. She is a teacher leader. Being a new principal, you walk into a building and those are the things that you're looking for. And she is someone that stood out to me, not by her words at all, but by her actions and her commitment and dedication, not only to Savannah Ridge, but to our children and to their families, is very important to her, which is very important to us.
Well, and that's an asset to you as an administrator, that you know the people that you can tap and lean on, and that they're going to, and with her being there so many years, that she, like you said, you know the kids that come to your school, you know who they are. You probably maybe have had their sister or brother as a student.
It's funny that you say that because I have a student in my classroom this year that was also a first grade student of mine 2 years ago. And he is the youngest of 5 siblings. I've had them all.
Wow.
So that's been a really unique experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been really wonderful. Talk about knowing a family.
Exactly, exactly. And I'd be curious to know how often that, I mean, obviously, how are you going to do research on that? But I bet that doesn't happen very often.
No. No. Well, 5 kids to begin with, all ending up at the same school.
Right.
And then to have, and it's been a various grade levels too. I've had some in second. I had some in first, and this one in third again.
Yeah, great. What motivates you the most to show up every day, have obviously the bright spirit that you have, and the safe environment that you provide for kids?
I like seeing my kids smile coming in the door every morning, but I like seeing them smile on their way out. They're not dragging out the door. Oh, yeah, I got homework and this and that. And I have them talking about, I can't wait to go home and tell my mom about this. Or, you know, just the idea of our after-school reading tutorial. We've called it FCAT camp. And my kids are so excited to participate in camp.
Right.
You know, that them being excited about school really makes me get even more excited about getting them through and making sure they have what they need.
You know, that is such a blessing for you to give to those children, that they have such a positive experience in school, regardless of the academics that you give them, if you're providing that excitement about school, because that's something that maybe not everybody gets. That is just that, and you're little, you know, you're a petite person, so you can kind of get in there with them.
I have some that are my size. I see, literally, when I say my students and I see eye to eye, we really do.
What else do you see when you go into her classroom?
Oh, wow. Before you even enter into the classroom, Ms. Petrie is fortunate enough to have a classroom that is on our main floor, hallway. And
so you hear them before you. Is that what you're telling me?
We see the work, the products of the children before you even
on
enter
the
room, on the hallway walls, and leading into her classroom. And one of the things that's very impressive is that you know what you're going to walk into before you even enter, because she has a very nice way of letting visitors know what's taking place. And from her signs to, shh, readers, where reading is taking place,
what a great idea.
to come in and join us. Very positive things of the sort before you enter, and then when you enter into her room, if she's teaching, if she's doing her direct instruction, kids are mentally engaged. You can look at their faces. You can hear it in her voice, the passion that she's trying to get across to children wanting to learn. And having such a diverse group makes that pretty challenging.
Right.
But as I sit and I listen to how she repeats and she does those checks with students, she gives them time to process, give them a chance to be able to collaborate with others and kind of have childlike conversation and kind of challenges them and pushes them. But what's very impressive is that when you're listening to her speak with the children and you're watching the children interact with one another, and as she kind of monitors the room, you can feel the safety net that's there. You can feel it's okay, this is a community that's accepting, and we're not going to demean each other. If our answer is not right, it's how can you help? It's not, no, that's not right, you did that wrong. You know, it's no, can you help her? LaTanya, can you go and assist Rebecca? You know, let's try that again. And I think that's very important when you provide that safety and protect students in a classroom. Safety is very important, and it shows that there's a community there in that room.
Right.
Well, I kind of got to feel that safety net today because as I was demonstrating something on the screen, I turned around and my kids were just looking, and you know, one of them finally raised their hand and said,
Miss Petrie,
that's not right. And I looked at him,
funny.
and I'm going, yes, it is. No, you're absolutely right. That is wrong. And
did you have the wrong slide up or something, or what?
Greater than instead of less than, and I explained it perfectly wrong. And they're all sitting there so attentive, and they're oh, yes, yes, until one of them finally said, no, that's not right. And I went back, and so I had them fix it. You know, and they walked me through where I went wrong.
What a great teachable moment.
And they laughed. And, you know, it was one of those math lessons where it was like, oh my gosh, okay, 10 more minutes of math, 20 more minutes of instruction to squeeze in, and we just needed that light, you know, feeling throughout the room. And as soon as that happened, I'm like, okay, we can do this. You know, if they're catching my mistakes,
I was just going to say, not only catching, but felt comfortable enough. All of them. You said they all had this look on their face. Only one, though, maybe raised his hand, but still that they felt comfortable. They could tell you, no, you got it wrong. I can tell you I would have never, ever said that to a teacher.
I don't think I would have. No.
But you know what's even more impressive and what's powerful, because we can talk about the good of academics and the kids are doing things that they're supposed to do, but when you get presented with challenging students that may need a little extra support or a little push, there have been times that I've had to visit Miss Petrie's room to support her with maybe some behavioral concerns, and it's very powerful when you have a student sitting outside the door waiting for me with Miss Petrie and said, but I don't want to go. Well, we've had some inappropriate behavior, so you at least need to come and talk, and very adamant about,
I don't want to miss a minute of my classroom.
And that says a lot.
That is extremely powerful, particularly from a student who might have been misbehaving or not making good choices, as we like to say.
Right.
Well, that's just two examples to me of the learning environment in your classroom, because not only are they learning, and I'm sure that her students produce very well when it comes time for that dreaded AFCAT, that I know, but you know, that they feel that learning it's about a spirit as well. It's not just about the facts on the page. It's about how do you feel about when you're learning and trying new things and not afraid to tell the teacher she's made a mistake.
Well, today we were talking about Martin Luther King Jr. and his activism, and we were listing some goals and some dreams that we have for ourselves.
Sure.
And I had to keep reminding them that we can have goals outside of third grade.
Sure.
You know, bigger and better and loftier goals than passing the FCAT and the benchmark. And, you know, it took some conversation, but I actually had to steer them away from school-related goals and, you know, to world goals and their personal future goals. But no matter where we went in that conversation, it kept coming back to, you know, like in math, when you said fractions could really help us, my goal is to be in the supermarket one day and know how to order from the deli, because I know that I need a half a pound and not a whole pound. I'm like,
That's
a quick
real
goal.
world application.
So, I mean, they're listening.
But you know, it's really interesting that said that, because what they're learning from you is school is not a place. Learning is not a place. It's about how you live in your world and how you manage your life. So that's, however you've gotten that to them, you've done a great job, obviously.
Thank you.
Yeah, and communicating with their families and their parents, too. Well, it's been a real pleasure to see you.
Thank
and have
you.
you here in the
Thank
studio.
you.
It's been fun.
Thank you.
It's just great to be able to introduce our community to the people that are, helping our children develop their lives. So congratulations to you for representing your faculty.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Ms. Green, as always.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned. And welcome back. And now we have from Southern Oaks Middle School, Carnell Plowden and his principal, Lisa Sullivan. Thanks to both of you for coming and spending some time with you. And I will start the same way we began, just right before we began videotaping, that I was told that you had the highest end-of-course exam scores in the district for algebra for 8th graders.
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that's what you've been told.
That's what I've been told, ma'am.
What is your secret? What is it that you do?
Basically, it's discipline in the classroom and respect. I get the respect of the kids, and I give respect. And like I said, I like to teach whole class. I'm a bit of old school. I'm an old school teacher. Teach, reteach it, teach it, and reteach it again until the kids get the lesson.
It's the basics, basically.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. I also understand that you're extremely active in the community.
Yes, ma'am. I like sports. Well, unfortunately, I teach mathematics. And I organize. I like to organize things. And since I've been at Southern Oaks, I've been organizing the sports. I've been organizing other activities like Halloween. For Halloween, we have Fright Night.
At the school, you're talking about school activities?
Yes, ma'am. And I've been doing that for the past 2 years.
Okay.
The Fright Night. But sports, ever since sports, we had organized sports, and they discontinued.
In the middle
I've been
school
having
level.
something. I've been having fundraisers. I do in-house fundraisers, and that's how I keep the sports going.
At Southern Oaks?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Why do you think it's important for kids in middle school to have something like that, a structured, particularly outdoor activity?
Well, to let off some steam, I teach 90 minutes of mathematics, and that's a long time. When I was going to school, it wasn't that long.
Right. We had 60 minutes in the classroom.
Yes, ma'am. So the kids need to have some kind of extracurricular activity, and I volunteer my time for that. And when I was going to school, I did play sports, and I like sports, and I think that's an avenue or a way out, for some kids to finish school or move on to the next grade level, or move on to a higher, whatever they decide to, accomplish or whatever with life.
We've had many young people from St. Lucie County go on and to higher education through sports and
yes.
and excel.
Yes, I have a few classmates that went to the pros, football and basketball.
So you're from Fort Pierce. I know your family's here, your history's here.
I'm a product of
You went to Fort Pierce Central High School?
No, I went to Westwood. It was only two high schools during that time. It was Westwood and Fort Pierce Central. Unfortunately, I was living on this side of 25th Street, so I had to attend Westwood.
Okay, and but you stayed home.
Yeah, I didn't really stay home. When I graduated, I left here. I went off to the Army.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did 10 years in the military. As a matter of fact, I heard you talking about New Orleans.
Right.
My station was in Baton Rouge.
No kidding.
Yes, I think I visited New Orleans one time since I was there. I didn't like to travel.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't like to travel, so yes.
Yeah, well, New Orleans is a great place to visit.
No, it's nice, very nice.
Very nice. A lot of culture there. People only think about Bourbon Street, but there's
Mardi Gras.
Yeah, Mardi Gras, but there's a lot of culture there. I've learned a lot since I've been there about history, things like that. So if you're working with your team or other 8th grade math teachers, do they ask you, gosh, Carnell, what is it that you do that we're not doing to get students to be able to perform, not just on tests, but I think with you, from what I'm hearing, it's that old saying that kids don't really care about what you know until they
Right.
know that you care.
Exactly.
And you're embodying that, it looks like.
Yeah, we always, the math at Southern Oaks, we're a close-knit family in a sense. We always meet and we collaborate about different things that we do in the classroom. And Ms. Sullivan, we have like walk gallery where teachers come, they come through and see what are you doing in the classroom. And sometimes you pick it back.
Oh.
And I never did like the whole, the circle, what is that, the breakout? I never did that, but when I
Right.
went to the walkthrough, I found it was something that I can do in the classroom would benefit the kids. So
Right.
I started doing that.
And that's what's something that's really great about Carnell is that he's a learner. He's an avid learner and a continual learner. And even though he's a veteran teacher and a strong teacher, he's always open to new ideas. And when we started the gallery walks, Carnell was one of the first people that brought things back and implemented them in his classroom.
That's great.
A change
Like you
process.
said, it's a
that's not
change.
something
Mhm.
you always see, and that's something we've been real proud of in our math department. And he's been a real leader in the culture of Southern Oaks about how it is good to change and try new things in your classroom.
Well, sure, because if you don't ever go watch somebody do something,
Right.
how are you going to know? You can read it in a book or you can see a video, but until you see it actually in application.
He was also one of the first ones that said, "Come into my room and see what I'm doing." So it's always it's back and forth, and that's why he's been so
I'm a
successful.
visual learner.
Yeah, I am
I can
too.
see it, I can duplicate it.
Well, that's what you said. You like
Right.
the whole classroom. You didn't really
Right.
like breaking out. But are the groups broken out by their skill level, and
The
they might
skill
need a little
level,
more
we-
intensive instruction?
Based on the FCAT scores, I do like a A-B thing. A student being the top student and the B student needing help. And I kind of like pair them, shoulder partners. You know,
So the
those type
students
of
are
things.
helping students.
Right, students are helping students in that way.
Were you always really good at math as a kid?
Tell you the truth? No, ma'am.
Oh, so a teacher
I'm
made
a
a
business
difference.
major,
You're a business
so
major.
what
okay.
happened was I couldn't find a job, and I was given an opportunity to sub, and I like teaching, so I went and took those extra courses to become a teacher, and I love it.
Yeah.
And I stuck with it.
So what did you learn when you went back and took those educational courses that maybe you're like, oh, you know what? Had somebody worked like on that with me, maybe I would have done better.
Well, to tell you the truth, I wanted to be a lifer in the military. And something happened, I had to leave. So that's the reason why I became a teacher. I have two siblings that they are teachers also.
Here?
Well, they was here. They moved. One moved to Fort Lauderdale, and one is currently working here at Village Green. She's a media specialist there now.
Okay. Do you talk with them about teaching and their attitude about it? And
Always.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest, but they were the first one that got into education.
Right.
Yeah. And I thought it was great, so I
Yeah.
followed their footsteps. Even
Now,
though,
Ms. Sullivan, when you visit Cornell's classroom, and I mean, you have to do that, but I have a feeling that you do it anyway because your gallery walk.
Yes.
What kind of interaction do you see with him, with students, with other teachers that might be in his classroom? Is it a very
It's always a
focused,
positive.
yeah.
Well, his instruction is always very focused and deliberate. It's very well planned out. The kids know their expectations. They're very clear. But on
That's the military structure there.
Absolutely. But underneath that, you see the relationships that Mr. Plowden has built with his students. And it's never just that one class, that 1 year. The thing about Carnell that makes me so proud that he's Teacher of the Year is that the students that he's had for so many years continue to come back. And not
That's
only,
always the sign.
Yes, that's a sign that they've made a difference.
Right.
And they come back and not only volunteer their time for his sports programs that he runs over the weekends, but they'll come back and tutor in his classrooms. We have several that come from Fort Pierce Central that are part of his cohort of groups that work with his sports programs. And when you see that kind of, it's never just, okay, I have Mr. Plowden for 1 year.
Right.
Mr. Plowden's always there. And the amount of students that continue to come back and ask for him is really quite, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's really
So you
very
have
genuine.
Rising 8th graders that ask for him?
Because he teaches our 7th and 8th graders in algebras, and they always ask him for the next year, or will I get Coach Plowden?
Right.
And it's just that real genuine being that he is, that the kids really relate to that.
So I imagine that there's many other things that you teach in your classroom besides just x plus y equals c squared.
no,
And I'm thinking that's not right.
we talk about everything. I'm like a parent. They ask a lot of questions, and I try to give them the right answer, steer them in the right direction. You know, they always ask why should we have mathematics. It's very important. I give them some scenario, and the best one is a banker. Say I'm a banker. I say you want to know what kind of money you putting in there, taking out what kind of interest you would get on the money, you know, or when you buying a car,
right,
buying
exactly.
a house, you don't want anyone to chip you. You want to know the percentage, how much you would pay each year, you know, the compound interest, and the different types of stuff like that.
Well, if you're going to live within a budget,
kids,
you have to know how to manage that if you go to the grocery store.
Yeah, go to the grocery store. You got to have food in the house. You got to pay for expenses and all of that good stuff.
But I think that with your work with students outside of school, and I think, are you involved with the scouting program as well?
Scouting meaning?
Like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts?
No, I
for some reason I thought you were.
I was a Boy Scout
you were a Boy
person.
Scout.
Yeah, that was probably about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But I wanted to stay in sports, and that was taken away from my Saturdays. And I volunteer my time. You know, I have an open gym for the community. Most of our kids. Most of our kids in
on
the
Saturdays?
areas. Yes, ma'am. And they come out, like 20, 30 kids. Have organized basketball, and they enjoy. You know, they stay there for about five hours or so, and they go home. Yes, I volunteer lots of time, my time with the kids.
They'll remember you for the rest of their life.
Oh, definitely, they come back.
But the thing about sports and I think this is what I'm hearing in your classroom too, it's about teamwork.
Yeah,
you
teamwork.
have some that help each other.
Yes.
And it applies to sports, but it applies to your AB students as well.
Exactly.
They're helping each other.
Yeah, they're helping each other, and it's just like the military. You know, it's teamwork. You know, if you work together, you get things done. You accomplish your objective and stuff, and that's what I try to gear. Matter of fact, when I go to take the kids to lunch, they walk in a single file line, even though they are 8th graders. And you know, that's discipline, showing discipline, and showing that they care, and you know.
Yeah. Now, the kids that come back and help you and tutor, were they students of yours previously in the classroom, or you know them through sports?
Well, they're students in the classroom through sports and just attending Southern Oaks.
So what I'm trying to get to is that they're teaching in the same way that you do, because that's the way they learn.
Matter of fact, before I just left to come here, I had a young lady that I had in the past 2 years ago. She comes back and tutor, and she was in my class and asked me, did I have anything for her? She attended Fort Pierce Central. And I told her, you know, we're just reviewing for an exam tomorrow, so everything is okay, and she went on by her
I got this.
Yes, ma'am.
What are some of the other kind of things that Carnell does at your school? And I know he's got the sports part, but meeting with other teachers, mentoring new teachers, that kind of thing.
He does mentor in our new teacher program
as
one of our mentors, as well as the Best Friend New Friend program that's with in partnership with the union. He's one of those Best Friend New Friends, right, Carnell?
Yes, okay.
Yeah,
and he's just a real strong member of our community and our culture at Southern Oaks. He's on our BLPT team. He's on our SAC committee. He works with our PTO. I'm pretty sure there's nothing else.
I was going to say, what's left?
He's pretty much on everything that we do. And when we started different curriculum initiatives, Carnell's always been a leader in that development as well. When we started 90 minutes of mathematics every day, he was right there with us going through training for, you know, differentiated instruction and 90 minutes of block delivery of lessons. And that was something very different for all of our teachers. He's been an 8th grade team leader. He's been an 8th grade department chair. So he's run the gamut of leadership opportunities at Southern Oaks, as well as finding his niche with our children. You know, and just building that respect, not only for themselves, but for our school. And I think the best lesson he's given them, the students that that Carnell has known, is that it's important to give to the community and give back.
Which is exactly what he's doing.
And that's what he's taught these students, that they come back. And it starts.
And they're doing it, though. They're doing it. Those kids
they're
are coming
doing it.
back.
They're coming back and learning that
community service hours.
This is what we do, and this is how we give back to our community, and that's what it's all about.
But even if they don't get those community service hours, it sounds like they're doing it anyway.
They do it anyway
because they see you doing that. You're role modeling for them, and that's that's a really good role model to have, is to see that, because you can't teach somebody that. You have to show it to them.
And I also volunteer my time, you know, early in the morning. I'm normally there like 7 o'clock. You know, any kids that need any extra help in mathematics, I tutor. And I tutor after school, and I tutor even kids that do not attend my school.
Well, you are the embodiment of everything that's great about a teacher and a coach and a community person, because you realize that this is an investment in our future and our community. It's not just in those four walls in your classroom. It's outside, because only 1 out of 6 hours that kids are awake are they at school. It's those other 5 hours that is the influence. It's been a real pleasure to meet you and get to know you and hear about you, and to hear how well you're respected by your peers and your administrator.
Well, thank you.
And that's quite a compliment from the faculty at Southern Oaks to represent them.
Great.
Thanks. And thank you, Ms. Sullivan,
You're very
as
welcome.
always.
Thanks for having us.
You bet. Okay. We're going to be wrapping up this segment with our discussion with Carnell. And this is the end of week 3. We will be coming back next weekend with another group of teachers that are professionals in your schools. So please stay tuned next time. Thanks for being with us.